Number 10. Storm. Storm has had many different looks throughout the years, and depending on which era of Storm you are most familiar with, you might not recognize her right away when it comes to her appearances in modern day comics. When I think of Storm, one of the most iconic looks I think of is her very different 80s punk rocker look, where she's sporting a bright white mohawk. For me, this look is still one of the first ones that I think of even today. Even if you go back to her first appearance, she looks pretty different in comparison even to the 80s look. The cool thing about the modern day Storm look is that it seems to sort of incorporate all of these looks that have come before while also being quite unique. It's an homage to the past while not discounting the very real possibility of a grander future. That's actually what I like when it comes to a lot of the X-Men's updated looks. It's all about acknowledging the past while also using said past to fuel and motivate the future. Storm's initial appearance, her 80s look, and of course the now. Number 9. Harley Quinn. I know people love the original costume, so this might be like kind of a hot take, but I personally think Harley has had so many amazing costumes and looks over the years that have just improved on what was already, well, good. I'm not saying the original costume was bad, to be clear. So yeah, I'm not saying the original costume that she had was at the level of some of the other ones on our list, low-key, being too much, or too ridiculous, but I am saying that I think her design has only really improved with time. It's a compliment, Harley. Take it. Of course, not all of her looks have been winners in comparison to that original look, but I do think that her current outfit has definitely been one of her best that we've seen so far. And then of course there is her whole Birds of Prey looks, which I loved, and her The Suicide Squad DCEU look, which seems to have been inspired by more modern Harley Quinn comics and video game designs. And to be clear, we're talking about James Gunn's The Suicide Squad, not Suicide Squad. Not David Ayer's Suicide Squad. Those are two very different looks, are they not? And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are loving this list and you want to hear about some more cool supervillain redesigns that we love, be sure to let us know by giving this video a thumbs up. Number 8. Echo. Echo is Maya Lopez. When she first appeared, she was a villain who didn't even know that she was a villain in the story. She ended up fighting against Daredevil after being misled and made to believe that he was the one responsible for killing her father. She wasn't really a villain though, she was just like a misguided person. Echo's really, I think, always been a hero deep down. When we first see her, she wears bandages on her arms, possibly an allusion to her one-woman dance show, which is actually based on her life, which was all about how she felt like an Echo. Also, yes, there are many things that Echo is skilled at because her power is like Taskmaster's. She can acquire a physical skill simply by watching it, so she's not just an amazing fighter and martial artist, but she's also a great dancer too. Echo currently in the comics has shown up in the Avengers. She is now the new Phoenix in the comics, having won the opportunity and burden of being bonded with the Phoenix Force during the Phoenix tournament. In fact, Maya in the tournament didn't actually win, but instead was chosen because she had lost the most. The Phoenix Force was looking for a fallen champion apparently, not a big time winner. Echo as the Phoenix looks quite different than her initial appearance, no? I think it's like the Phoenix Flames for me. She still has those bandages though, and she's still got her face paint with her hand.
Number 7, we've got Anti-Monitor. Yes, this villain appears a lot on these powerful villain super lists, but I couldn't ignore him on this one even if I tried. His influence in the comics is immense, but what places him in this list is primarily his near infinite age. This guy was born in the early days of the cosmos, lived for over 9 billion years in a dormant state, and even fought a battle with his counterpart, Monitor, for 1,000,000 years. It's hard enough for most beings to live that long, let alone be in a constant battle the whole time. And on top of all this, he's also just proven to be nearly impossible to kill. Even when he's vanquished for good, he isn't really killed, but instead broken up into molecules and scattered through the universe. And he had to be punched into a star to make that happen. By Superman from Earth 2, with the help of Darkseid, Superboy Prime, Dr. Light, and heroic Lex Luthor. So I'd argue that Anti-Monitor definitely deserves a spot on this list.
Number 6. Hulkling. Hulkling is another hero who looks pretty different from his first appearance. He used to have a bunch of ear piercings, but I guess he can shapeshift, so it was easy for him to close them all up. I guess he was just like, I'm not into it now, and they're gone. Hulkling was much more gruff looking, I'd say, in his first appearance with the Young Avengers. However, he also had the name Hulkling. I mean, he still has that name, but I know that name has nothing to do really with the Hulk, but still, in his original appearance, he's big, he's green, and he's kind of like the Young Avengers' own version of that character, because, you know, everyone's kind of mirroring someone. Though to be fair, Teddy Altman is very much his own character and his own person, like many of the other Young Avengers. Currently in the comics, Hulkling isn't just a hero, but is also the Emperor of the Skrull/Kree Alliance, the Skree Alliance if you like, and this new role has also dramatically changed his overall outfit and appearance. He looks super cute now, not that he didn't before, of course, he's just a different kind of cute now than he was before. Also, he has totally different hair. His hair now is blonde. It was black, but also shapeshifter, you know what I mean? Number 4. Crime Syndicate. The Crime Syndicate have always been cool, but over the years their looks have gotten a lot more detailed, badass, and in some cases, a lot hotter. I'm here for the sexy Crime Syndicate, I must say. I'm feeling it. The Crime Syndicate are actually one of the earliest villain teams to take on the Justice League, making their first appearance in 1964 in Justice League of America issue number 29. At least the earlier continuity version of that team, that is. Because this is DC we're talking about here, so you know, now we're on Prime Earth and that was before that, but anyways. Back then their outfits were less sleek and more blocky, such was the time. They were also a lot less sexy back then overall as a team, and had a lot less independent flair, with their looks being just a little bit more rough and basically similar adaptations of the team members that they were mirroring. I mean, Owlman literally has Batman's look from the neck down almost exactly, with only the Stark owl on his head setting him apart. It's a look. Number 5. Trapster. Trapster was once known by the unfortunate name of Paste Pot Pete. Well, he's still not an A-list villain. Trapster's look and name are at least a lot better than what he was originally working with. He was once a villain who simply was obsessed with a glue gun, sticking people in place and sometimes clumsily getting trapped in his own glue. Fortunately, from there the character was expanded upon and changed his name, sick of being ridiculed, making his whole thing more about creating traps than just, you know, trapping people in glue. I think overall a good decision from Trapster's point of view. Unfortunately, many heroes still tease him from time to time, as they still remember the days when he was known as Paste Pot Pete. Yeesh, they will not let him forget. Number 4. Professor X. When we think of Professor X, usually a lot of us probably reflect back to his look in the 90s animated series. In fact, many X-Men fans who have seen Professor X recently would probably wonder just who they're even looking at. If you are more familiar with his appearance in the 90s, both in the animated series and in the comics, the modern Professor X might throw you for a loop. Currently, Professor X is able to walk again and happens to be sporting not a suit and, you know, a blanket on his lap, but instead an all-black skin-tight one piece. Also, he always wears Cerebro now, obscuring his recognizable face and his bald head. But yeah, that was Professor X then, and this is him now. Number 3. Nick Fury. While Nick Fury does look very different in modern day comics in comparison to classic comics, it is important to note that technically these are 2 different characters. Well, technically these are kind of like 3 different characters. Or 4 different characters. There's a lot of characters. The version of Nick Fury we saw in the MCU was actually inspired by the version of the character from the Ultimate Universe, who, fun fact, was also inspired in terms of appearances by Samuel L. Jackson, the very man who would end up playing him. In fact, a lot of the MCU characterization and even stories are inspired by the Ultimate Universe, the alternate reality of 1610, and the stories that went on there. The original Nick Fury of Earth 616 was actually a white man, but he would inevitably be replaced by a 1610 inspired alternate Fury after the original Nick Fury of 616 ended up kind of being transformed into a Watcher. The 1610 version of Fury and Samuel L. Jackson's take on the character would then be adapted for Earth 616, the main comic book continuity, and that's how we would get Nick Fury Jr., who is the son of the original Nick Fury from the comics and looks a lot like Jackson's 1610 inspired version from the MCU. See what I mean? There's lots of Nick Furies. People are like, Nick Fury changed, and I'm like, Nick Fury didn't change, there's just a lot of characters that came together. Number 2, Captain Britain, or more specifically, Betsy Braddock. Whether we're looking at things from the point of view as the hero mantle of Captain Britain, or looking at it from the character viewpoint of Betsy Braddock, either way, Betsy is looking pretty different now. For a good amount of time in the comics, Betsy was known for looking just like Kwannon, because, well, she was kind of in Kwannon's body, or they were kind of fused together at one point. Fortunately, she has now been restored to her own body, freeing Kwannon and allowing Kwannon to take up the Psylocke mantle. Betsy then went on to become the new Captain Britain in her brother Brian Braddock's place after he was ensorcelled by Morgan Le Fay, becoming her new Dark Knight. It was up to Betsy at that point to take Brian's amulet and become the new Captain Britain until Brian could be saved. Betsy has been shattered and managed to return and is still known as Captain Britain currently. Even though Brian also got free, but then Brian was like, you take it, I'm good, I'm gonna do other stuff. You don't have a lot going on right now, Betsy, so take a thing and then make it your own thing. I like it. Number 1, Captain Kate. Even Kitty Pryde's name has shifted somewhat. She's been known by a few different names in the comics: Shadowcat, Sprite, Kitty Pryde. Now, however, she prefers if you just call her Kate. Captain Kate is the Red Queen of the Hellfire Trading Company, and typically dresses in red as such. But not only that, she also typically dresses kind of piratey now. I personally love it. This is because Kate is now also the leader of the Marauders, who have reclaimed this one villainous name and are basically a pirate crew who sail the seas, bringing those mutants to Krakoa who want to be there, but who for one reason or another can't get there. They also help deliver and intercept shipments of goods as necessary. So the whole look really fits with what Kate is up to currently in the comics, but it is very different from her original or even her past looks. Kate before, Kate now. Although I will say that original outfit that she's wearing with like the red vest and like the stripy shirt, I was like, is there already like pirate vibes that were kind of carried over here? I don't know. Number 10, Loki. Loki has shifted so much in comics. He's technically a different character from that original Loki that first appeared in Venus issue number 6 and again in Journey into Mystery issue number 85. Loki's look originally was pretty silly, especially if we're talking about trying to adapt that look to the big screen and make it look menacing. We do get a version of that sort of original costume in the Loki series when we see an older, bitter, and sadder Loki who actually more reflects that original costume and that original Loki. Loki now appears to look much cooler in the comics and is also much more versatile when it comes to their style. This has also translated to the big screen, where Tom Hiddleston's Loki has also gotten more and more dapper and stylish as time has gone on as well. At least that's how I see it. Number 9, Venom. You wouldn't recognize Venom today compared to his 90s appearance either. For one, Venom initially appeared as a villain and therefore not only looked different but also acted quite differently. And now if we're talking about hosts that we associate with Venom, they're also pretty different in terms of their appearance. Currently, the Venom symbiote is teamed up with Eddie Brock's son, Dylan Brock. Oh yeah, if you've been out of comics for a while, Eddie Brock also has a son now. Dylan is actually Anne and Eddie's son, with a little mix-in of Venom as well, who was also there when he was conceived. And if we're talking about Venom in terms of Eddie Brock, you might not recognize him either. He's aged considerably as a result of him becoming the new King in Black following that King in Black event where Null was defeated and Eddie took his place. That was Venom and Eddie Brock then, and that is who Venom is attached to now, and what Eddie looks like now. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are loving this list and you want more lists like it where we talk about all of the changes in comics, be sure to let us know by giving this video a thumbs up. Number 8, the Joker. The Joker is another character who has come a long way when it comes to his different looks. While his iconic face paint has remained, he's had many different outfits over the years, and many different iconic pieces that we would identify as being part of his costume. Purple and green remain the Joker's colors, but instead of wearing a suit with like a ribbon looking tie that kind of reminds me of something like a child would wear, like a kid in the olden days, or some kind of like floppy bolo tie, he is typically seen more in a trench coat that happens to be purple. Also, if anyone knows what that tie is called, it's like a little bow, but it's like a string. Let me know in the comments. I don't know what that's called. I do not know. The Joker looks less ridiculous and more menacing in modern comics, with the pranks of his earlier days also getting twisted along with his appearance. In more modern comic book tales, Joker has also been particularly terrifying, at one point having removed his face and stapled it back on in Death of the Family in 2011, and at another point sporting his own intimidating Joker-inspired batsuit during Joker War in 2020. Both of these are great looks, but very different looks. Number 7. Flash Thompson, or as he's currently known, Agent Anti-Venom. Still, it's pretty wild to think that Flash Thompson, aka Eugene Thompson, started out as Peter Parker's bully back in the day. Flash has come a long way from being an antagonist to a friend of Peter's to a full-on war hero and later superhero. He's battled alcoholism, became an amputee, and even traveled into space where he fought alongside the Guardians of the Galaxy. If you only knew Flash from his first appearance, or vice versa, you only knew him from modern day comics, you'd probably be shocked to see just how different the character is, how far he has come, and how much he has grown and evolved. He even became such a popular character among fans that he got to join the Resurrection Club, being returned to life recently after dying during the fight against Red Goblin. Number 6. The Riddler. The Riddler originally looked Jim Carrey levels of Riddler ridiculous when he first appeared in Detective Comics issue 140. And that's not a slight to Jim Carrey, by the way. I still love that version of the Riddler. Just also a side note, when I call things ridiculous or weird, it's not necessarily an insult coming from me. And while I do have respect for the Riddler's original question mark suit, I don't think it's necessary for him to be covered in question marks so that we know he's the Riddler. He likes riddles. We get it. Riddler has had a ton of redesign since that first appearance, with a good number of his modern takes being much improved on in comparison. Okay, so not all of the modern takes on the Riddler have been great. See Riddler with his hair shaved into a question mark shaped green mohawk. That was a weird time, but overall I think we can say we've seen a marked improvement. I also do love the recent redesign with Paul Dano playing the Riddler in the Batman film. I feel like this design for the character was definitely one of the most terrifying looks for him yet, and also fit really well with his origin and his backstory, and just with the overall tone of that film, which takes inspiration from the comics but very much grounds the character of the Riddler in reality, giving him more power as well in the process. I think. Like when you make it just not about like silly riddles and you make it about like what is the Riddler and why are there riddles and what is this really about, I mean, it's a powerful character.
Halfway through into number 5, Green Arrow. Haha, you knew this was gonna happen. The Arrowverse crossover event, Crisis on Infinite Earths, had been in the process of setup for a while, with the previous Elseworlds crossover just being one big commercial for it basically, and the seasons leading up to it revolving mostly around what could happen in Crisis. One of these issues was the death of Oliver Queen, which shockingly was carried out in the first part of the crossover. After bringing Oliver back to life at the Lazarus Pit on Earth 19, John Diggle, his daughter from the future Mia, and Constantine all traveled to Purgatory to retrieve his soul. But when he was about to go back with them, Jim Corrigan arrives with a way for Oliver to save everyone. This turns Oliver into the Spectre, basically the most powerful being in the multiverse, giving him the powers of a god, allowing Oliver to reboot the universe with the help of the Paragons, and also stopping the Anti-Monitor from securing the destruction of all Earths. He also ended up corrupting the Speed Force by empowering Barry, which resulted in the Speed Force dying for a time, which is a whole other can of worms I won't discuss. But needless to say, you wouldn't recognize this version of Green Arrow, especially since he's dead and you can't really see him.
We're in the top 3, folks, and at number 3 we have none other than Thanos. I know, yes, in the movies he was beheaded, but many argue that this isn't the end of him. Thanos is an ancient Eternal who was born on the planet Titan to his father Alars, also an Eternal. So this dates Thanos back about 1 million years, and Thanos himself is an Eternal, meaning we can at least deduct that he's immune to all disease and aging. In fact, Thanos was specifically banned by death from his realm, meaning it's almost confirmed that he can't be killed. So yeah, in the movie, spoiler alert, should have said that by now, we all saw him die. But by the laws of this character's storyline, this won't be the last we see of Thanos, no matter how severe the injury appears to be.
Number 2, Lex Luthor. Lex looks a lot cooler and a lot more dapper in modern comics than his original appearance. Remember when he used to wear a purple suit with green pants? What is it with villains in purple and green? Especially over at DC. What's going on over there? It's kind of a very shocking combo of colors, especially for someone like Lex. Although I will admit, put it into a mech type suit, gloss it up a bit, and it works a little better for me. I do like it. Lex used to wear this purple suit with straps crossed over it and a very Dracula-esque high collar with bright green pants and purple boots. Fortunately, he now more keeps to suit and tie looks, looking a lot more polished and refined, and occasionally mixes in some badass mechanical armor, which makes him look a lot more intimidating than that collar ever did. Number 1. Killmonger. Talk about villains who have seen an upgrade. In Jungle Action issue number 6, we got our first look at Killmonger. I don't even think you'd recognize him today if your main experience with this character came from the Marvel Cinematic Universe film Black Panther and Michael B. Jordan's portrayal of him. The original look for Killmonger involved a lot of spikes, as opposed to a lot of horrifying scars. He didn't initially mark himself for his kills, instead, he was just really pointy. He also wore white pants and a red sash, with no shirt initially. We've come a long way since then, with Killmonger having even been to space and back, where he ruled over the Wakandan space empire. And thankfully his look has changed quite a lot since then. I'm partial to his symbiote look personally, still a little spiky, but you know, it doesn't overdo it. Nothing wrong with a little bit of spikes, you just don't want to have too many. Number 10. Hulk. Bruce Banner is still the Hulk in this reality, but instead of being in the wrong place at the wrong time and ending up being exposed to gamma radiation, which would transform him into the Hulk against his will, he was a researcher working for S.H.I.E.L.D. and with the Ultimates to try and rediscover the super soldier serum. Yeah, in the Ultimates, much like in the MCU, everything is kinda connected by this one single thread, this one purpose, the super soldier serum. Bruce would believe he had uncovered the serum and decided against S.H.I.E.L.D.'s better judgment to test it on himself. This would turn him into the monster we'd come to know as the Hulk, but only when Bruce was using the serum. He could not change at will, and his transformation was not initially triggered by intense emotions or rage. However, he would then blend the actual super soldier serum formula extracted from the blood of the revived Captain America, Stephen Rogers, with the Hulk serum, which would end up resulting in his transformations becoming a permanent aspect of his DNA. Number 9. Elektra. While still super heroically fanciful, Elektra's backstory in the 1610 universe is just a touch more grounded than her 616 counterpart. Instead of her mother being murdered and dying a very violent death, she instead died of breast cancer. Elektra was not made to train in martial arts when she was young, but rather enjoyed martial arts, and so she trained in martial arts out of her own interest, with Bruce Lee acting as an inspiration for her, as a fan of his. She ended up becoming a villain all because of a fellow university student who was a jerk, the wealthy Calvin Langstrom, who tormented her at school because she was willing to stand up to him and defend others against him. Because of this, he made Elektra's life a living hell, attacking one of her friends and even hiring thugs to burn down her father's laundromat business as well as her family home. It was because of this that Elektra turned to the dark side. Frustrated that there was no justice for her or any of Langstrom's victims, no matter the crime that he committed due to his wealth and his connections, she ended up attempting to kill him, setting off on a darker path than her fellow friend and vigilante, Daredevil. At one point she's like, "Daredevil, you coming with me or are you gonna help this Langstrom guy?" And he's like, "I'm gonna help this guy?" I was like, dude, just go with Elektra. Elektra's on like a, she's bad, but she's trying to be good, you know what I mean? I don't know, I love bad girls. I'm like, she bad, but she good. And friends, before we move on to the next spot, if you love this list as much as I loved writing it for you, please be sure to show us some love by giving this video a thumbs up. Also give it a thumbs up because I want to tell you more origins. And so if you give it a thumbs up, there's a better chance that'll happen. Number 8. Hawkeye. Hawkeye is actually a lot more mysterious in the Ultimate Universe than the version we have from the main continuity comics. It's even been implied before that Clint Barton might not actually be Hawkeye's true name, but even an alias from the name he was given at birth. So mysterious. Instead of being someone who picked up his skills from swordsmen around the carnival circuit, Hawkeye was a former Olympic archer turned Black Ops agent who worked for S.H.I.E.L.D. The Earth 1610 story from Hawkeye more mirrors his MCU story, where he ends up settling down and having a family, but tragically in the Ultimate Universe, when the Ultimates are betrayed by fellow member Black Widow, Hawkeye's family is killed and he is kidnapped, tormented, and interrogated by Natasha's true allies. Don't worry though, he manages to escape. Thank goodness. With only his fingernails as weapons. That's how you know you're cool, if you can just fight with fingernails. I don't think I could ever do that. Although mine are pretty sharp, so maybe.
Coming in at number 7, we've got Punchline. From Flatline to Punchline, we've got a fun little segment here. These two characters don't share much besides suffixes though. Punchline is something like a Harley Quinn stand-in, although there is more to her than that. After Joker and Harley had another one of their famous arguments, they split. This time it seemed pretty permanent, so Joker looked for a new second in command. In this search, he found Alexis Kay. She dons the requisite clown makeup, but isn't really one for jokes. Cold, cruel, and exacting, she is somewhat of a Harley inverse. In preparation for the Joker War, she oversaw the stealing of Batman's funds from offshore accounts. She beat up Harley Quinn and stabbed Catwoman, leaving her for dead. Holy moly, she really is all business.
Number 6, Black Widow. In the reality of Earth 1610, Black Widow never truly reformed, but instead was a spy and villain the whole time. Gasp! It turned out that she was a double agent who was only pretending to serve the interests of the United States. While posing as one of their heroes, she was actually still loyal to Russia and the antagonistic team known as the Liberators, of which she was also secretly a member. Shh, don't tell anyone. Her goal was to destroy the Ultimates, and after winning over their trust and even becoming engaged to Iron Man, she betrayed the Ultimates and turned on them, revealing her true colors. Of course, she may have revealed those true colors a little too soon, as Iron Man easily apprehended her and turned her over to the authorities, but not before she could kill his butler Jarvis in cold blood. R.I.P. Jarvis.
Number 5. The Linear Verse. The Linear Verse is an alternate reality where the people age so slowly that it's almost safe to say they don't age at all. Batman began his career in 1939, with his youth lasting for decades instead of the normal aging of a human. In a way, this kind of represents how comic book characters seemingly never age and grow old, except in certain stories. By the late 20th century, the world had most of its superheroes. After this point though, things get a little whack. See, Earth became a dystopia ruled by the wealthy, which, I don't know, it seems a bit too real for me. And a great disaster was foreseen that actually came to pass. And the world became very similar to the one in the Earth AD story. Anthropomorphized animals had become the rulers of the planet, with humans devolving, save for Kamandi and a few others. Then, in the 25th century, humanity seemingly built a high-tech society, which saw the rise of Michael Carter, who is Booster Gold. In the 31st century, Earth became the base of the Legion of Superheroes, who were an interplanetary superhero team. This world is just a wild ride. Oh, and it first appeared in Generations Forge #1 in April of 2021.
Number 4, Valkyrie. Valkyrie had a very different story than our 616 counterpart. Instead of being an Asgardian inhabiting the body of Barbara Norris, who we know as Brunhilde, she was just Barbara Norris, a 19-year-old girl who was basically obsessed with superheroes, but who had no powers of her own. She was a big Thor fan, and so she kind of decided to imitate his look, dressing up like a scantily clad, sort of Norse goddess or warrior. Barbara did have some skills as a martial artist in training, but was not nearly as experienced as she claimed to be. She wouldn't receive powers until Loki tricked her and her team, the Defenders, into pledging loyalty to him in exchange for said powers. They did not know that Loki was Loki at the time. Valkyrie's gifted powers would grant her superhuman strength, durability, and would allow her to fly.
Coming in at number 3, we've got Squeak. A member of the fascinating new group, the Unsanity Collective, Squeak is but a child. Following in the footsteps of Miracle Molly, she is a cybernetically enhanced human with a lot of spunk and gusto. This group is constantly targeted by the Magistrate, who are looking to scapegoat some organizations in their mission to create a police state. Squeak makes for a fun sidekick and a very sympathetic character. She's just trying to make it in a world that is very cold and unkind. And when Peacekeeper 01 and the Magistrate show up to take out Miracle Molly, she's caught in the crossfire. This interplay creates some very hard decisions for Batman and his allies, and leads the story in fascinating directions. While she's not the most powerful or influential character, a lot of the story moving forward hinges on this pink-haired individual.
Number 2, Nick Fury. Nick Fury was changed quite a bit in the Ultimate Universe. This is 616 Nick Fury, a former World War II soldier turned super spy whose life was saved by the Infinity Formula. This is 1610 Nick Fury, a former World War II soldier who worked alongside Wilson Fisk's grandfather and Wolverine at the time, but who was taken in by the US military and forcibly experimented experimented on as part of Project Rebirth. In fact, this version of Nick Fury from the Ultimate Universe has an origin story that kind of echoes that of Isaiah Bradley of Earth 616, one of the first super soldiers. In fact, I believe his Origins came out only a few years prior to this Origins, which was added in sort of later. 2008 we got it for Nick Fury, and I think for Isaiah we got it like, I want to say 2003? 1610 Nick Fury would be altered by the serum he was given, which of course was the Super Soldier Serum, but he would use his enhanced strength and abilities to help his fellow prisoners escape. This version of Fury was also modeled after Samuel L. Jackson, who would later end up being promised a part in potential future films, in order to help make amends after Jackson noticed that Marvel had basically used his likeness in the Ultimate Universe without asking him first. But don't worry, it all worked out. No one got really mad, I don't think, about it, so yay. Number 1. Black Knight. Dane Whitman has such a random story in the Ultimate Universe. In the main continuity, he is a more medieval feeling hero who fights with an ancient cursed sword that causes him to kind of lose sanity and become more rabid almost each time he uses it. In the Ultimate Universe, he became more machine than man. Originally, he was a man who served in the military but became a quadriplegic after saving his fellow soldiers in battle. He would then become more of a mech with a human mind, but was considered too insane to actually be used for the team that he'd been recruited on, the West Coast Ultimates. As a result, he spent much of his life inside a stasis tube until he was intended to be used as a weapon against the Ultimates during the events of Earth 1610 Civil War story. Such a random story. What does this have to do with Black Knight at all? From 616, I don't know.
And at 10, Jim Gordon Batman. In the wake of Batman's apparent death against the Joker, plans for a new Batman were discussed, with Powers International laying the groundwork for a Batman-inspired task force. Their first candidate chosen to model this program was Jim Gordon, of course, who was initially hesitant to fill Batman's shoes but eventually agreed. Going through intense government training and getting surgical muscle implants, Gordon was given the first model of a new Batman robot armor, which he nicknamed Rookie, and took to the streets as the new Batman. By complete chance, he ends up finding Bruce Wayne and informs him that he's taken up the reins as Batman. As Gordon hears several different reports about Bruce Wayne being found dead throughout Gotham, he works with Batman to figure out that a Batman from an alternate dark universe, known as the Batman Who Laughs, is the one responsible. Tracking him down, Gordon seeks help from his estranged son, James Jr. However, another dark version of Batman arrives and introduces himself as the Grim Knight. But it's certainly jarring to see Batman go from like this big bulky hero to the lanky and, sorry to say, old Jim Gordon. He even looks fragile. And at 9, Wonder Girl. Yara Flor from the tribe of Amazons from the Amazon is the new Wonder Woman in Future State, who, in the absence of Princess Diana, came out of obscurity from the heart of the Amazon rainforest in Brazil to protect man's world from the magic that is within it. Yara Flor is a demigod who hails not from the island of Themyscira, but from the Amazon rainforest in South America. She has a faithful winged steed, Jerry, and along with her friend Kapora, a forest guardian spirit, Yara travels to the underworld to rescue one of her Themyscirian sisters from the clutches of Hades, the Olympian god of the dead. Yeah, a sister that she's never even met before. Yara is also an active member of the Justice League, although the new rules of the Justice League forbade fraternization amongst its members as a way to protect them individually and not have to go through the same tragedy that resulted in the dissolution of the previous League formation. Wonder Woman and Superman, John Kent, ended up becoming friends. It's also worth noting that despite always willing to work with her colleagues in the League, she's not happy to be a part of it. And at 8, Superboy. Now this seems like it's cheating since there are multiple people who use the Superboy mantle. However, the one that had the most makeovers has seemingly been Con-El, otherwise known as Connor Kent, with an E, because they're not cool like I am. If you read one version of Connor and then read a couple series later, you might not realize what's been going on. This man has gone through more looks than any teenager getting ready for a date in a Disney Channel movie. Not to mention the time where he merged with Spider-Man, after Spider-Man somehow defeated him. Superboy was created by Project Cadmus using Kryptonian DNA, intended as a replacement for Superman, who died fighting Doomsday. Artificially aged to his mid-teens and implanted with the equivalent of a high school education, Superboy was set free by the New Boys Legion before he could actually be implemented with safeguards to control him. One of the boys gave him a leather jacket before he set out to the city, where he had his first encounter with a villain when he found Sidearm attempting to steal money from an ATM. But since then, he's gone through like 2 other costumes and a load of different centuries, the most recent version coming from like the 30th century. So, yeah.
Number 7. Iceman. When Iceman originally came on the scene, he had a very different look. If we go back to his first appearance in X-Men issue number 1, he was actually more like a snowman than an Iceman. Iceman in his early days wasn't quite as frozen solid and was more like an anthropomorphic but faceless snowman in battle. He didn't wear a trademark X-Men uniform, but he did put on his little black booties, which were kind of like, I guess, X-Men trademark uniform booties, because they're black and yellow, and there was a lot of black and yellow coloring with those original uniforms. This meant that Iceman was always the one who had to help Angel get dressed, as Warren had to deal with his wings, both unbinding them and then of course fitting them through his uniform holes, I imagine. We'd later learn in Marvel's Voices Pride from 2021 that Bobby was actually pretty happy to help, as he had a bit of a crush on Warren back in the day. Iceman since then has had a major glow up and appears to look like an ice prince in modern day comics. He even has cool spiky pauldrons. He's also had a glow up in terms of his powers too. Woo!
And at 6, Wally West. Wally's lightning color has shifted based on various circumstances before. After escaping the Speed Force, his energy shifted from yellow to white due to his connection to the Speed Force growing stronger. And Wally's lightning later evolved to an indigo blue cosmic energy, and this was most notable when he united with the Mobius chair, learning his children were inhabitants of a new dark multiverse Earth created by his own fears of losing them, an Earth that Tempest Fugonaut was now tasking him with destroying. Wally spent one last day with his kids, spending a nice dinner with them and giving them one last kiss before deciding to make his move, knowing what needed to be done. So he forced Tempest to promise him to get his kids to the Earth once he acted, leading Wally to sit on the Mobius chair and obtain its knowledge and power. The new godlike Wally just watched stuff and then just kind of destroyed everything. But he also realized that the chair was now infused with the power of Dr. Manhattan, and he could just do more than just sit and watch. Yeah, an omniscient Flash? That's pretty traumatic.
Number 5. Speedball, or as he was known for a good amount of time in the comics, Penance. Robert Baldwin initially got his powers after a lab experiment went awry. After being exposed to extra-dimensional radiation, Robbie found that when he was the target of a certain amount of force, his body would transform. Instead of him being harmed from said blow, he would produce a protective barrier, causing him to become basically like a human bouncy ball. He could use this energy to then shield others, blast opponents, or to even halt speeding projectiles in midair. Speedball would later join the New Warriors. However, later on, he would be part of an incident at the center of the First Civil War, where 612 civilians were killed, including 60 children. This would prompt him to change in appearance and in mindset, becoming Penance, a spiky armored version of the character who had internal spikes in his suit to remind him of all the victims lost, as he felt personally responsible for their deaths. Speedball has since returned to his original appearance, but it has taken him time to recover both physically and mentally from his time as Penance. And he's kinda still on that road to recovery. He was Penance for a long time.
And at 4, Black Lightning. In Dark Knights of Steel, Superman finds his way to a medieval Earth where familiar DC favorites are recast in the Middle Ages. Batman is a young prince and John Constantine is an oracle. But perhaps the most unique transformation is that of Black Lightning, who now is a king, pursuing a mysterious agenda against Superman and his family. The character has not been regularly seen in the comics for some time, but returns in Dark Knights of Steel, which has got to be my personal favorite Earth so far, because medieval, she's king, you get it. This time, Supes' parents actually made it to Earth along with him, and in the Kingdom of Storms, Kal-El's birth has triggered horrifying visions in a young John Constantine. As Constantine lays writhing on the ground, his mind is overwhelmed and he's dictating his visions to the royal scribe. The king arrives and readers see that it's Black Lightning. He's concerned over Constantine's visions and tells the scribe to write down everything the boy says. As Constantine comes out of his trance, he tells Black Lightning that the end is near. This is a pretty damn badass version of Black Lightning, similar to Black Panther in a way, since now Jefferson is rightfully a king. Respect.
Number 3. Nature Girl. Nature Girl is amazing. She's one of my favorite of the newer mutants to come out, and recently she has become a lot more metal, both in approach and in her appearance. Nature Girl can basically commune with nature, which often means she can encourage animals to help her, and they actually seem to feel within Nature Girl a kindred spirit. So there's a lot of empathy going on there between both sides. More recently in the X-Men Unlimited Infinity comics, we saw that Nature Girl has been in a constant state of depression and duress, feeling the pain that all nature is currently feeling due to humans polluting and just generally mucking up the planet and its natural and carefully balanced ecosystems. This forced Nature Girl to go on an adventure to fight for what she believes in, which resulted in her kind of accidentally killing someone and then losing all of her hair, just sporting her antlers as she turned to the dark side and took on oiling operations, aiming to destroy them and anyone who wouldn't renounce their loyalty to them. This is not your friendly neighborhood Nature Girl, that's for sure. Nature Girl then, Nature Girl now. I love her new dark look though. I love both versions of Nature Girl. I think Nature Girl is awesome.
Penultimately in at number 2, Dreamer. Nia Nal, also known by her code name Dreamer, is a fictional superhero from the Arrowverse television series Supergirl, portrayed by Nicole Maines. The character is based on and is depicted as an ancestor of the DC Comics character Noora Nal, also known as Dream Girl. She debuts in the 4th season of the series, and Nia Nal is the first transgender superhero on television. In March 2021, it was announced that Nia Nal would feature and make her comic debut in a story written by Maines to be published in a Pride-themed comic book anthology on June 8th, 2021. Mostly you won't recognize her because she was a character really created by the show, even if she was intended to be a present version of Dream Girl. Nia Nal's powers include precognition and astral projection. On July 21st, 2018, trans activist and actress Nicole Maines was announced in the role at the show's San Diego Comic-Con panel. It was also confirmed that Nia would become the superhero Dreamer and that she is an ancestor of the Legion of Superheroes member Noora Nal. Maines described Dreamer as having this ferocious drive to protect people and to fight against discrimination and hatred. She's the superhero we need right now. The character is the first transgender superhero on television, and honestly, I think that it was worth it for this list. And finally, in at number 1, Batman. Batman in Dark Knights of Steel, a new limited series from DC featuring your favorite heroes and villains as medieval knights, has made a load of changes to the character in this world. One of the biggest changes being to Batman. Bruce is the knight assigned to protect the king and queen of House L, as well as their son Cal, like how Link was assigned to protect Zelda in the story of Breath of the Wild. However, he seems to be more than just a mere man, able to withstand a banshee cry, in this case being Black Canary's cry. When it really should have killed him, he only bled from his ears. Even he was confused and worried that he had magic inside him, so he told Jor-El, who came to Earth along with his wife and son before Krypton exploded, that he should be banished for their sake. That's when, spoiler alert for the first issue, it's revealed that Bruce is really the result of an affair between Jor-El and Martha. So Batman is now part Kryptonian, while also basically being a Witcher. Oh wait, hold on, okay. He's ostracized because he's a bastard, and now he's secretly part Kryptonian? Yeah, Bruce Wayne is literally a Witcher, confirmed.
Barbados, or Barbatos. From the DC Universe, Barbatos, aka the Hyper Adapter, is a bat-like cosmic being that often appears in the form of a bat-like demon that can traverse time and space freely. But in the new 52, the character is reimagined as the god of the dark multiverse and the first incarnation of Batman. Yes, you heard it right. This super evil demon god is actually known to have taken the form of a bat in Wayne Manor, which Bruce takes as a sign from his late father to commit to the Batman mantle. I don't know why he does this though, because Batman then commits his whole life to fending off evil forces. It's sort of a trade-off, because although Batman goes on to become, well, Batman, Barbatos ends up using the hero as a portal to the multiverse and starts work on assembling his own roster of evil Batmen called the Dark Knights. This would include Batman Who Laughs, among others.
Number 9, Parallax. Parallax isn't technically or officially a god, but they are one of the manifestations of the emotions of the color spectrum, an avatar and physical manifestation of fear, what the color yellow represents and embodies, at least over at DC Comics. And they are also a cosmic entity who is super ancient and powerful, so I think in regards to Green Lantern lore and importance, we can put them on god level. Parallax was the one responsible for taking over Green Lantern Hal Jordan, feeding on his own fear and insecurities over the years. In fact, the graying of his hair at his temples was later pointed out as an indicator of Parallax's growing strength. Fun fact. At least that's how some people saw it. Could also just be Hal getting older, really. Parallax took over Hal, becoming one with him, and causing Jordan to give up his Green Lantern mantle and be known simply as Parallax. As Parallax, Hal Jordan threatened the entire universe and destroyed the Green Lantern Corps and their major battery, which is pretty villainous and powerful stuff.
Null, the original creator of the symbiotes and eldritch god of darkness. Null is a very powerful and very old villain. He is first awakened when Celestials invade his kingdom, and he decides it is time to create his first symbiote. His first creation comes in the form of a sword, which he uses to decapitate a Celestial. This is his first big demonstration of power, and it's quite something. He then decides to branch out and expand his venture of creating symbiotes to take over all of the good in the cosmos. And he does this by creating what's known as a hive mind center with himself as the nexus, meaning he'll have control over any and all symbiotes that are controlled through the hive. His army then really starts coming together with draconic monsters, anamorphic creatures, and shadow men, all under his control and dedicated to satiating his evil hunger for life. Luckily though, Null eventually finds himself disintegrated in the center of the sun. But that's a huge fast forward I did there. This villain god does some serious damage to the greater good of life in the cosmos before he's finally taken out.
And at 7, Weather Wizard. Meteorological madman known as the Weather Wizard was a menace to both Barry Allen and Wally West's Flash, and one of the most overpowered supercriminals they've ever faced. First appearing in 1959's The Flash number 110, criminal Mark Martin armed himself with the Weather Wand, an advanced piece of technology which could control like atoms in the universe, some form of energy, okay? Martin took the wand from his deceased brother, a scientist who never intended it to leave his lab. With some modifications, it became a deadly weapon for the criminal, and at full power, the wand could summon lightning storms, rain clouds, or change the weather entirely. Whatever the weather was, Martin could use his mighty powers to rob banks and cause mass panic. A later reimagining of the Weather Wizard would see him instead granted the metahuman ability to control the elements without using the wand. And the Weather Wizard also appeared in the CW's Flash TV show as one of the many metahumans created by the particle accelerator explosion which gave Barry Allen his powers. However, on the show there are 2 versions, one of them appearing in the first episode which Joe West killed, and the second appearing in the 16th episode of that season, with the second one being the first's older brother, the Martin brothers, Clyde being the first one, and Mark being the second and the proper Weather Wizard. As Cisco said, he's been waiting to use that name since day one.
Mephisto. This guy is known as an extra-dimensional demon who takes on the likeness of a traditional devil from the Christian religion, and he resides in a place he calls Hell, or Hades, but he isn't actually Satan, and his homeworld isn't actually hell as we know it. He uses these terms in an effort to exploit the constructs of fear and evil that humans have instilled into our culture. Although he does have ties to the original story of Adam and Eve in the form of the snake in that tale, so I don't know, seems kinda Satan-y to me. But his origins are widely understood to be unknown, and one of the only theories comes from the story of Nemesis. This being was born at the beginning of time and tried to create other beings in the likeness of his own immense power, but accidentally created a bunch of demons. And as you guessed it, Mephisto is one of these demons. Nemesis then ends his own life and becomes the Infinity Stones. That's just a side bit of lore for you, in case you didn't know. But thank God the Infinity Stones are banned for demons, because if Mephisto got his hands on those, it'd be all over.
Halfway through into number 5, Joker's daughter. Unfortunately, it's not the Joker's biological daughter. That would have been an interesting story. This is just the girl who finds Joker's face, stitches it onto hers, and then goes berserk. So honestly, it could very well be his biological daughter. The only person that I think would commit such an atrocious act is in fact the Joker, so who knows. While maybe not being as prolific or accomplished as the Joker, Joker's daughter is definitely insane enough for this list. Like, even if I'm pretty sure like a lot of people know she exists and like not many people underestimate her, but hey, look, even if one person underestimates her and they watch this video, boom, it's enough. It counts, okay? Not to mention the fact that she also went by Catgirl, Scarecrow, Riddler's daughter, Penguin's daughter, Card Queen, and Harley Quinn. Each incarnation also calling herself the respected super person's daughter, which I have to say is going to make a family reunion real awkward. But in actuality, she ended up being Dwella Dent, Two-Face's daughter, apparently, which is seemingly BS in my opinion, but we love a girl with a little flair, you know? And that flair will cause her to ruin Gotham City.
Chthon is one of the original Elder Gods that inhabited Earth billions of years ago. Over time, Chthon becomes the first black magician on Earth after studying the mystical forces of the universe. Unfortunately, about 1 billion years ago, these elder gods that Chthon was a part of degenerate and start turning into demons, Chthon included. Luckily, one of them, Gaia, avoids this transformation and keeps her pure form, giving birth to Adam, who makes it their duty to slay these demons. But Chthon avoids the God Eater and escapes by creating another dimension known as the Flickering Realms. Chthon's writings are left on Earth in the form of scrolls, which are eventually bound together into the Darkhold. So his influence continuously finds its way back to Earth despite his banishment to this new dimension. He even possesses Modred and eventually Scarlet Witch for a time to keep pushing his evil magic agenda on his original home of Earth.
Getting close to the end, and at number 3, the Shade. This Golden Age Flash foe is one of the most powerful and most terrifying, but he isn't always on the side of evil, luckily. First appearing in Flash Comics number 33 from 1942, this immortal conduit for dark energy was a formidable enemy for Jay Garrick and often caused problems, the speedster, with his weaponized shadows. Kind of like my demons, causing me all kinds of problems as well. Initially depicted as a common criminal for the Flash to stop from robbing banks and menacing Keystone City in the 40s, the Shade was eventually reimagined as something much more sinister. Originally possessing a magic cane allowing him to control darkness, the revamped 90s Shade was given a real identity of Richard Swift and an endless supply of supernatural abilities. Returning to menace the hero Starman and eventually becoming his ally, the Shade used his powers of shadow manipulation, time travel, teleportation, and intangibility for both good and evil. The Shade also had his own dimension, the Shadowlands, where unwitting enemies would become trapped. And I think that having his own dimension earns him a spot in the top 3. Just saying.
Anti-Monitor. We all know this guy. He's a real thorn in the side of everything good in the universe. He's also another one of those characters that finds his origins at the very dawn of time. Okay, so he's not around since day 1, but almost. He's first created as the result of a conflict on the ancient planet of Oa, during which the inhabitants fight it out over the decision of whether to destroy all of the evil in the universe or only some of it. It's crazy how petty wars can be, eh? Even in the ancient cosmos. Anyway, the bad guys go to a dimension called Qord, where Anti-Monitor is birthed. In the Positive Matter universe, the Monitor is also created, the counterpart to Anti-Monitor as you can tell, and you best believe those two end up fighting. But it's no normal war. They battle it out for 1 million years, and I'll save you a million years and skip to the end, it ends in a tie. They both go unconscious and hibernate for 9 billion more years. Of course, this is just the beginning. Anti-Monitor comes in and out of pretty much every DC character's story at one point or another as a major threat, and I'm sure you can guess why.
Number 1, the one below all. Probably one of the most powerful of all gods in the Marvel Universe. Definitely the most powerful god, I would say, on this list. The one below all is the dark counterpart to the one above all, which is seen as the creator of all the Marvel Universe and multiverse besides, one of the most powerful beings of goodness in the whole of Marvel Comics. Likewise, the one below all is therefore one of the most powerful beings of evil. They are typically connected to gamma mutates, and can control and manipulate those who have been mutated by gamma radiation. The crazy thing is that without the one below all, we actually can't have the one above, and vice versa. One cannot exist without the other, and so with them both comes a whole lot of bad and a whole lot of good.
Number 10. Earth 3. The post-Flashpoint Earth 3 is similar to its pre-Flashpoint Earth, but way better. This Earth is the birthplace of evil. The mentality here isn't good versus evil, it's more like just evil. Strength is respected more than anything else, with the weak basically being annihilated. Instead of the Justice League, Earth 3 is home to the Crime Syndicate of America, whose members include Ultraman, Superwoman, Owlman, Power Ring, Johnny Quick, Sea King, The Outsider, Grid, and John Johns. Earth 3 was reintroduced in 2013 and has played a part in Darkseid War in 2015, Dark Knight's Death Metal in 2020, and in 2021 it was reborn again in the Infinite Frontier story. Like I said when we started, the DC universe is complicated, but what's remained the same since 2013 is that some of the coolest stories come out of Earth 3. Number 9, Earth 1. Earth 1 and the number 10 pick are probably the oldest of the Earths and universes on this list. Earth 1 first appeared in 2008 in its New 52 form, but it introduced a whole spectrum of readers into the DC universe, and sales for its comics were through the roof. So I believe it deserves a spot on the list. Here, superheroes are all younger, and they all just started their superhero careers. Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, the Teen Titans, and Green Lantern all have graphic novels that take place on this Earth, and they are all just fresher takes on the almost overdone superhero origin stories. With the characters all being younger, it was also very easy for younger readers to relate to, and gave the characters conflicts that they wouldn't have faced as their prime Earth counterparts. Number 8. Injustice Universe. The Injustice universe of Earth 22 is the universe in which the events of the Injustice video game and its related comics take place, and it first popped up in 2013. So here in the Injustice world, Superman went a little bonkers. After the Joker tricked Supes into killing both Lois Lane and her unborn child, plus unintentionally blowing up Metropolis, Superman murdered the Joker and eventually became a tyrannical ruler of Earth. The Batman of Injustice creates an insurgency, eventually enlisting the aid of another Earth, Earth 1 of this reality. With the alternate Earth's help, he overthrew Superman's regime and rebuilt the world. And that's all just part of the first game.
Number 7. Bucky Barnes. As opposed to being the camp's mascot like he was in the golden age of Marvel Comics, Bucky here was a young friend of Steve's who joined him on his journey in the military working as a press photographer. Makes sense. Bucky would not go missing before Steve, or actually go missing at all. Instead, it would be Steve who went MIA and was presumed dead, and Bucky who had to live with this and move on. Bucky Barnes would not become the Winter Soldier, but instead would live a relatively normal life, returning home and bonding with Roger's fiancée Gale. In fact, the two grew so close that they ended up in a romantic relationship, and Buck would marry Gale instead. By the time Steve returns from the ice, Barnes is now an old man. I like this reality where like Bucky just gets to grow up and like have a normal life. It's pretty cool.
Number 6. Archive of Worlds. The Archive of Worlds isn't so much an alternate Earth, it's actually an artificial multiverse which contains pocket dimensions in the form of film reels. Now that's just kinda nuts on its own, but then take into account the fact that it was created by a mad god, Artur Io, who is the god of Tales, who is jealous of the new god of Tales, which is the internet. It's pretty nuts. He tried to steal the new god's soul and was instead encased in a Wayne Tech satellite where he created the Archive of Worlds. First appearing in Batman/Superman Volume 2, number 16 in 2021, the pocket dimensions include a world where Superman never came to be, as well as one where Batman never came to be, a world based on hell, a western world, a world based on the life of Alana Strange, and so many other unnamed worlds. Auteur.io eventually was cured by Batman, and he instead became Observer.io, which is a lot nicer.
Coming in at number 5, we've got Peacekeeper 01. Let's quickly dive into this private army Simon Saint seems to be putting together for a second. There will be plenty of nameless, faceless automatons forcing the people of the city into line, but there's also gotta be some extra special leaders, right? For that, there's Peacekeeper 01, one of the first sheriffs sent up by the magistrate. This one in particular is a wicked strong augmented human, one who Batman readers have indeed met before. Does the name Sean Mahoney ring a bell? He was once a guard at Arkham Asylum, and a brutal one at that. But for a while there was no way for him to get back to work. He was the one who discovered the dead body of Bane, killed by Joker gas, and also went back to rescue some nurses, losing limbs in the process. However, Simon Saint offered him a whole new life with some prosthetic limbs to boot. All he has to do is lead the all-powerful magistrate police force in their mission to totally take over the city. Who's gonna say no to an offer like that?
Number 4. The Metalverse. Okay, I know we're going to talk about the Dark Multiverse, but we haven't talked about, and we need to talk about, the Metalverse. So basically, after Perpetua defeated the Justice League, she gave Prime Earth to the Batman Who Laughs. He and his Dark Knights defeated all the heroes and then reshaped the Earth into his vision. Look at this super cool map! He turned Gotham City into a whole continent super city that is guarded by Joker dragons. He made his home Castle Bat, which is another version of Batman who became a sentient Gotham. There is a hell on Earth called the Hellscape, ruled by Wonder Woman. Arkham Wasteland, ruled over by Harley Quinn. A Superman-powered new Apocalypse prison where all the remaining heroes are held. Megapocalypse with a Rainbow Valley where all the Lantern Rings lay because no one is worthy that exists anymore. This version of Earth Prime isn't exactly an alternate universe, but it definitely sounds like it should be. Hey nerds! Just wanted to say thanks for watching. It means a lot to us. If y'all don't mind smacking that like button, it would help us out. And It helps YouTube know we don't suck. Okay, on to the top 3.
Number 3, Iron Man. Iron Man's initial backstory, which got retconned into just being basically a weird anime show, was a lot different than his 616 counterpart. I know that technically this is no longer canon in terms of his backstory within the 1610 universe, as instead his initial origins was moved over to Earth 55921, but before that happened, before it was retconned away, it was canon in the 1610 universe, and I like to remind everyone of just how gloriously bizarre it was. So here we go. Orson Scott Card was the writer behind the series, a sci-fi writer who you might recognize the name of, as he is the author of many other acclaimed science fiction works such as Ender's Game, which if you are like me, you read Ender's Game in school and you were like, this book's actually pretty good. I don't know if that's what happened to you, but that was my story. I feel like that's actually maybe why I like sci-fi today. That might have been the beginning. Maybe. That and Stargate. The Ultimate Iron Man series, however, ended up being a little too out there for comic book fans in terms of what it offered when it came to shaking up Tony's origins. Shook it up a little too much. Tony here was a child who was altered while in his mother's womb by a lab accident. He ended up being born with neural tissue all over him, which made him extremely sensitive to the world around him, but also made him hyper intelligent. His father Howard would create a liquid suit to protect his son from the world he was so sensitive to, but this suit would have its drawbacks and would also make Tony appear blue. So there you go.
Number 2, Deceased. You know how Marvel has the Marvel Zombie storyline? Well, this is basically DC Zombies. That's a bit of an unfair comparison though. The two stories are very different, with the DC version ultimately being slightly more grounded and emotional. In this reality, Cyborg has been captured by Darkseid on Apocalypse, and it's revealed that the anti-life equation lives inside him. When Darkseid tries to take the equation, it is instead corrupted, causing Darkseid to explode Apocalypse, but not before Cyborg was sent to Earth. Once he arrives, he inadvertently infects the entire world with the anti-life equation, which has taken the form of a techno-organic virus. This turns millions of people and a lot of metahumans into zombies. The story follows the survivors as they try to quell the threat, and eventually leave the Earth to settle a new home. I kinda prefer this to the Marvel Zombie story. I don't know, it's a survival story instead of a funny zombie story. I like it. Sue me. Please don't sue me. Number 1, Dark Multiverse. First appearing in Dark Knight's Metal #1 in 2017, the Dark Multiverse is basically the shadow version of the regular DC universe that resides underneath the primary one. So there are negative versions of the 52 Earths of the regular multiverse, but it was also originally the World Forge, meaning it has so many more worlds. For example, there are worlds born from sentient life's hopes and fears. Honestly, each world here could take up a point on this list, but it feels like that's cheating a little. The World Forger was the master of this domain and created the Great Dragon, Barbatos, to destroy unstable realities that couldn't join the Orrery of Worlds. Barbatos, manipulated by Perpetua, rebelled and defeated the World Forger, creating the Dark Multiverse. A lot more happens after that, but I can't cover that in a 1-minute segment, so Dark Knight's Metal is an amazing story and it deserves your reading.
Number 10, Lady Deathstrike. I'm often torn when it comes to a character like Lady Deathstrike. When it comes to her initial appearance and costume as a villain, it was an iconic and terrifying look for the character, but over the years I believe we've done right by her to update her look and make her look more refined, but also still terrifying. In fact, the fact that she doesn't always wear the horror of her appearance on her sleeve, broadcasting it for the whole world to see, almost makes her more frightening to me at times. Of course, even without that first iconic look, she still sometimes does like to dress up spooky scary, but I like that now her design usually gives us some more depth when it comes to what kind of villain and character Yuriko Oyama is. Honestly, I also really loved her design in the Messiah Complex. Terrifying, intimidating, but less cartoonish I suppose than her original design. Number 9, King Shark. King Shark is a shark, and has always been a shark, but hasn't always been a great white shark. He's actually had quite a few different looks over the years, although I cannot deny his recent redesign that we got in James Gunn's The Suicide Squad, and which kind of carried over somewhat to his own Suicide Squad spin-off comic series, is probably one of the best ones we've seen in a while. King Shark here is more a humanoid great white, a beast of a land fish who walks around on 2 feet, but is still tough enough to fall more than 20 stories and still get back up somehow. There is also a sweetness and innocence to this cannibalistic creature that we know as Nanaue that comes across both in his character redesign and costume redesign, with how casually he is often dressed. And friends, before we move on to this next point, be sure to go check us out on Facebook if you aren't already. We just relaunched everything over there. It looks super cool, so make sure if you're on Facebook you are following us. Do it now. I'll wait. Number 8. Poison Ivy. My feelings on Ivy are similar to my feelings on Harley when it comes to her costume design. Although I think when it comes to her overall redesign and growth as a character, I actually feel like her changes have been even more significant in comparison to Harley's, possibly just because she's been around, quite a bit longer. Poison Ivy made her first appearance in Batman issue 181 back in the 60s. The look she sported back then has always kind of reminded me of Peter Pan, a sexy lady version of Peter Pan, but Peter Pan nonetheless. I think it's the tights and the shoes, honestly, and the green, or I don't know, maybe the Jolly Green Giant mascot. Yeah, she also kind of has that look going on, minus the green skin. However, now Ivy generally is depicted with having green skin, but fortunately her outfit has evolved and changed with the times, so she's not like full-on Jolly Green Giant. From her going to what she wore originally, to wearing underwear and an open button-up shirt in the Arkham Batman games, to a full dark green bodysuit in modern comics, to something that pays a little more homage to her original plant-covered look with her Queen Ivy redesign. I gotta say, actually, that Queen Ivy redesign, initially I was like, I don't know about that. And it came around on me. I quite like it now. Number 7. Toad. Toad has also had a lot of different looks throughout the years, with his original one being the most ridiculous. And also fitting, but also so ridiculous. But I'd say the real cool thing about Toad is that a lot of the time his outfits actually really reflect how he's feeling inside and his evolution as a character. This is why at first it's really no surprise that Toad basically is dressed up as a court jester in his first appearances. At that time that was basically what he was, acting as Magneto's often disappointing goon who wanted nothing more than to please his master, but usually kind of failed at doing so. Toad? As time went on, Toad would come to realize that he didn't actually need to settle for Magneto's mistreatment of him, and that he was no longer really indebted to Magneto. In various depictions of the character, he'd become somewhat more independent, and sometimes a lot more Toad-like in terms of his design. Fox X-Men movies, I'm looking at you. And in terms of his roles, he also even went from being a villain at Magneto's side in the comics to kind of a weird ally of the X-Men when he became the school janitor in Wolverine and the X-Men. Remember when that happened? He also at one point got a flaming tongue. So he's changed a lot. I don't know if I'm as here for the weird green flaming tongue, but I definitely feel like his look is a lot better now than it was before. Also like that he's kind of like a hacker now. I think that's cool. Number 6. Captain Boomerang. Boomerang. Oh boy, what a long way this character has come. In fact, the main Boomerang that we've come to know in the comics isn't even the same person anymore. Is it still Owen Mercer now? Owen Mercer is the son of the original Boomerang, and even when Captain Boomerang was the OG, George Harkness, he had quite a different look. Captain Boomerang made his first appearance in issue 117 of the original Flash series, where he sported a boomerang patterned outfit, white scarf and white sash. Also his little hat. This look was something. Honestly, it reminds me of like a flight attendant. And I kind of would like to see it come back, even though it's quite a bit more flamboyant than what Harkness wore in later years, and definitely a lot less intimidating. Still, it's pretty fun. Obviously I'm saying it got better as time went on, but I still like this look. Harkness would later become more synonymous with a more street-inspired look, wearing a trench coat and often covered in boomerangs, but not as a pattern, more as like armament instead, so that, he could throw a boomerang and then throw another one. Boomerangs all over the place. Boomerang patterns and blue outfits with little hats. I need to do a cosplay of that original look.
Alright, at number 5, I'm putting Dormammu. Am I pronouncing that right? Another villain who's been around for countless millennia, possibly even millions of years. Dormammu proves to be powerful enough and durable enough to possibly be considered immortal. One piece of evidence is his clash with Agamotto, a spawn of one of the Elder Gods where Dormammu actually held his own. And for those of you who don't know, Agamotto easily contended against Galactus himself. And if that wasn't enough to suggest Dormammu's potential for immortality, he's also immune to aging and harm of any kind, physical or mystical. His powers have also been used for resurrection in the past, so it's fair to say that stopping this guy will be tough, and arguably won't be permanent in any case.
Number 4. Despero. Despero used to have a weird gill side hawk and an orange jumpsuit, but now he's got like a gill mohawk and looks like a badass. For those of you unfamiliar, Despero is actually one of the oldest enemies of the Justice League of America. He made his first appearance in Justice League of America issue number 1 from 1960. In other words, he's pretty old school. Not only has his look completely changed, but his whole deal is pretty much changed as well. When we first met Despero, he was a villain who was all about mind control and playing lots of chess, not known for his physical prowess. Over time, the depiction of this Kalinorian alien villain changed and he became more known for his strength than his fondness of chess and his mind games. Although the modern character of the version from Earth Prime has both super strength and psionic powers. So too did his appearance change, with him trading in that jumpsuit for a cape and, you know, some prominent abs. Cause that's what makes you look scary, I guess. Gotta have the abs, gotta be real jacked. I do like though when he was like, I will play chess with you, ha ha ha, I'm a villain. We need more chess-based villains. Someone make that, please. Number 3, Kang the Conqueror. Okay, so Kang still looks pretty crazy, even in the comics, but he's come a long way from that wild purple and green eyesore when it comes to his cinematic appearance at least. We saw our first, likely of many, Kangs in the Disney Plus streaming series Loki. Here, Kang was played by the amazing Jonathan Majors, and instead of sporting his very blue face and purple helmet, he was dressed simply in a nice purple robe with green tunic, pants, and sandals underneath. A nice nod to the original design while still providing its own unique take on his look, and a take that is quite a bit more sensible and stylish. Still, an air of flamboyance in how he's dressed, but not so over the top that it undermines how intense, inevitable, and intimidating He Who Remains, aka an alternate Kang, appears to be here. Number 2, Ultron. Ultron has come a long way since his first appearance, disguised as the Crimson Cowl in issue 54 of the Avengers, and then introduced fully as the menace known as Ultron 5 in issue 55. Even then, he'd already apparently come a long way from his first model, his first design, which was revealed in a flashback in issue 58 of the Avengers, where this crude yet workable robot calls inventor Hank Pym his daddy. That was quite a crude looking version of Ultron. Since then, Ultron has become more and more menacing in his appearance as time has gone on, with one of the most terrifying redesigns of the character appearing, for me at least, in the alternate reality from Marvel's What If Disney Plus series, where he actually succeeded in taking over Vision's form. The more humanoid Ultron looks to me, which is basically what also has happened over time with his design, with him even at one point fully merging with his father, Hank Pym, in the comics, the more terrifying I find his appearance to be. And what is really the point of a redesign for a villain, if not to make them more menacing, horrifying, and intimidating to readers and the heroes they come up against? I mean, you're either going for more scary, I think, or more depth. Or ideally more depth and more scary. That's the best. Number 1, General Zod. General Zod has received a major upgrade when it comes to his look over the years. Oh my goodness. And this improvement has made him a lot more intimidating when it comes to his overall appearance in the comics. When General Zod first made his appearance in Action Comics in issue 283, we really only saw him in a flashback panel where it was revealed he was condemned to spend 40 years trapped in the Phantom Zone. Oh no! He appears as just a guy in a green uniform, not particularly muscular, wearing little booty shorts? Possibly no pants? It's hard for me to tell if his pants or tights are just the color of his skin or if they are non-existent, as I'm really only looking at, you know, like scans of this. So he's either just running around in green short shorts and matching knee-high boots, or he's got tan pants on. I'm not sure which. But either way, he's got his underwears over his pants or just no pants. Now, General Zod is less associated with the colors of tan and green, and is more affiliated with the colors of black and red, often donning armor in those colors and sporting menacing yet cleanly shaped facial hair, really evoking those kneel before Zod vibes in the present. I mean, I can't even believe it's Zod when you go back and look at that original appearance. Woo! Looks so silly. Number 10, Bishop. As some of you pointed out in the comments on the part 1 of this list, a lot of 90s characters, especially 90s X-Men, have completely different looks in the modern day when compared with their 90s appearances. Lucas Bishop is definitely one such character. Although he still has his M tattoo over his eye and a few details in his costume that pay homage to his original look, Bishop has definitely seen some changes, some of which might be so great that fans may not at first recognize him. While he still often is seen with his XSE guns and even still sports a red bandana, Bishop is now a member of the Marauders. Gone are the days of those 90s X-Men colors, and modern day Bishop dresses mainly in reds and blacks, in homage as well to his role as the Hellfire Trading Company's Red Bishop. Also, I love that Bishop is the Red Bishop because he's a bishop and his name's Bishop, it's crazy. Number 9. Crystal. Crystal's initial appearance had her recognizable mainly by her ginger or strawberry blonde hair and a simple white dress. I personally always thought of Crystal as being ginger, but then I see so many different versions of her where she has like maybe blonde hair. So I don't know, but I've always thought of her as a ginger. She is known for being the younger sister of Medusa, who is the Inhuman Queen and true love of Black Bolt. Crystal has had a few different looks, but generally she has longer ginger hair and is either in a yellow suit or a Fantastic Four suit when she was, you know, on that team. She has been known for dating Johnny Storm, the Human Torch, was once married to Quicksilver and had a daughter with him, and she was even for a time married to Ronan the Accuser. Yeah, it's been an interesting dating history, I feel like, for Crystal. All in all, Crystal has had a sort of wild life, and while her costume has changed gradually, comparing her short blonde-haired self in her yellow and black diamond suit to her first appearance with long ginger-like hair in her white dress, looks like a dress to me, and you might not know it's Crystal at first glance. And friends, if you want even more lists where we talk about all the glow-ups in comics and I guess some of the glow-downs, if that's a thing, be sure to let us know that you love this list by giving it a thumbs up. Number 8. Pyro. Pyro might be sporting a very similar suit when it comes to how he looked in his first appearance, but he also now has a skull tattoo. A full face skull tattoo. And honestly, I have come to love it. Not only that, but this version of Pyro was also originally known as a villain, and like many on the island nation of Krakoa, has been given a new lease on life where he no longer needs to be a villain. Instead, recently, Pyro has exclusively acted as a hero, fighting alongside his shipmates and teammates, the Marauders. During his time with the Marauders team, St. John Allardyce ended up taking refuge with his fellow teammates in a tattoo parlor. A few of them decided to get tats while they were there, Pyro included. He decided to get a full face tattoo, getting a black skull tattooed over top his face. And I gotta say, it's just been growing on me more and more every time I read Marauders. At first, after he got this tat, I was expecting, like so many other Krakoans, that Pyro would end up dying and then being resurrected, erasing the tattoo from his face. After all, who needs tattoo removal when you have resurrection protocols, and mutants dying and returning is no longer really a big deal at all. Although I'm sure the Healing Gardens could remove Pyro's tattoo almost as easily. Still, he hasn't gotten it removed or died and been brought back without it yet, so while you might wonder who that is with the skull face tattoo, it seems that it's becoming part of Pyro's modern day look quite seamlessly. So maybe in 10 years from now we'll be like, oh yeah, it's Pyro because the skull face tattoo. Maybe he'll still have it.
And it's 7. Hippolyta. Hippolyta is the queen of the Amazons and ruler of Themyscira. She is also the mother of Wonder Woman. In the Harley Quinn animated series, Queen Hippolyta first appears in the episode Bachelorette, after being enslaved by Eris, who takes control of Themyscira and turns it into a spa resort, planning to sell it to Lex Luthor. However, Harley Quinn discovers her plan and along with her friends takes down Eris and saves the queen and Themyscira. To thank them and celebrate their victory, she throws a rager. And in something borrowed, something green, the queen appears as a guest at Poison Ivy's failed wedding to Kite Man and the old Gotham corn factory alongside some of her subjects. But the queen of Themyscira being mind controlled, that seems fairly ridiculous, okay? Even if she was mind controlled by the goddess of Discord, at that point, she might as well have just been able to tell us what games our friends were playing, okay? Harley Quinn, like they discovered her plan and took her down as a part of her bachelorette party for Poison Ivy. But if they could do that, how could Wonder Woman's mother not fight her her off. Seems kinda lame.
Number 6. Cable. In recent years, Cable has had a completely new look considering that his old version died and was replaced with his younger version. Of course, his older version has since returned, but there was a good amount of time there in the comics when you might have been confused as to just who exactly you were reading about. Is Kid Cable meant to be Nathan's son, you might have thought, or is he some like de-aged version of Nathan Summers? Well, the latter is the correct assumption if you made it. Young Cable actually hunted his older self down, in essence completing his time loop. But of course, the old man still existed out there, and if you went to the right point and place in time, he would still be living earlier portions of his life. As such, we were able to bring Old Man Cable back in the comics, and young Cable actually realized that he would also have to leave and let the old man basically take over, as while he thought he knew it all, young and all, that's what young people usually think. They think they know it all. It turns out he still has lots to learn. Honestly though, I love both versions of Cable, and I wish that old Cable could team up with his younger self on more occasions. I want like a Kid Cable and Old Man Cable team up comic. Number 5. Dazzler. Alison Blair has had a ton of different looks over the years, and there have been countless points in her history when you may have not recognized her. If you've been invested in modern comics for some time, then Alison's current outfit is Dazzler, which she also sported in Way of X issue number 3, the morning after the Hellfire Gala, will likely be recognizable to you. However, if the last time you saw her was in, her own solo series back in the 80s, then you might be confused as to even who this character is. And if you saw her back in 2015 and were familiar with either the present or past appearances of Dazzler, or if you're familiar with that Dazzler, I really doubt that you would recognize her in the present day. There's many times when you'd be like, who is that, depending on which Dazzler you know. There has been a tendency to try and have Alison change with music trends, instead of keeping her in her somewhat, I guess, outdated disco roots. But personally, I think disco can still be a valid genre today. I still love disco, and I'd love to see her even return to that iconic silver jumpsuit. I like that Dazzler's had so many different looks, that's crazy. Number 4. Angel. Angel is another mutant superhero who has gone through a ton of different looks in life. Most notably was his shift from having organic wings to techno-organic wings after he lost his organic wings when he became one of Apocalypse's horsemen. The crazy thing is that while Angel seems to appear as mostly his original version, there are times where you might be confused with him as to who is who, as he seems to kind of alternate right now in modern comics between his original form and his techno-organic form, Archangel. As far as I can tell, this hasn't been fully explained yet in the comics, though it has been acknowledged that this happens in a similar manner to his X-Corp partner, Monet. That is, when he gets more emotional or gets more angry, his techno-organic form seems to come out. This was alluded to at the end of issue 2 of X-Corp, their Hellfire Gala issue. And if there have been more explanations on this and I missed them, please feel free to tell me what issues I should in-depth read, because yeah, I feel like there's little details, but we haven't gotten like a full, here's how it is, let me break it down for you.
Getting close to the end in number 3, Wonder Woman. The Dark Knight's death metal story wrapped up early 2021 with issue number 7, and in that issue and the issue before, we see Wonder Woman at her most powerful, in a godlike form that's even more powerful than a god. As the comic puts it, quote, "She has been a god before, but at this moment she's more. At this point she has ascended past godhood and can see all of time and all realities. Okay, she sees like every Earth's timeline, and she faces off against the Batman who laughs in his most powerful form as well. This fight is so intense that they hit each other through time itself. Diana here is charged with anti-crisis energy, a connective force that links all history and all lives as one story. Then she moves on to become one of the hands that created the multiverse going forward, with no walls and greater possibilities. She aids in creating the future state story we see in the next issues, and what was seemingly the centerpiece of DC 2021. So Wonder Woman becoming a god and remaking the universe, while very Oliver Queen as Spectre, still a pretty damn dramatic change.
Number 2. Beast. Beast is one character that has gone through a massive amount of change since we first met Hank McCoy, the lovable vocabularian, scientist, and the X-Men's most bouncy team member, Beast. Back then, Hank was just a relatively large man with enormous feet and enormous hands, but his mutation continued to progress long after that first appearance, changing when he ended up forced to take a serum that he had created based around the hormone that causes mutation. As such, he he mutated even farther, which became permanent after he didn't take the antidote quickly enough to thereafter revert the effects. This meant that Hank was now permanently even more muscular, agile, and now completely covered head to toe in gray fur. From there, his fur would become more blue, and over the years his appearance has become borderline lion-like or even kind of cat-like at times. Number 1. Star-Lord. Considering how much Peter Quill has changed with each era of comics, it could be hard for fans to recognize him in modern day. Once again, his appearance and power levels have changed so much. In his initial appearance compared to his modern look, he's basically unrecognizable. And if we go even farther back to the Peter Jason Quill of the 1970s, the Star-Lord of Earth 791 now, he is completely different. It should be noted though that shortly after the main continuity version was introduced in Thanos issue number 8, which came out in 2004, he was shortly after pretty radically changed when he appeared a few years later in Annihilation Conquest from 2007 to 2008, which is pretty much the version of Quill roughly that we have today. Although even then, he's still changed quite a bit. Quill more recently in the comics returned from Marinus, an extra-dimensional world where he lived unaging with his friends, partners, and his lovers, Mors and Aradia, for hundreds of years. He came back even more powerful than before he had left, and ended up joining forces once more with the Guardians of the Galaxy to defend the cosmos against the return of the Dark Olympians.
It's 10th Birthday Boy. Ray Salinger was a serial killer who operated in Gotham under the alias Birthday Boy, and he was actually the first costumed criminal encountered by Batman in his crime-fighting career. Introduced in Batman Earth 1 Volume 1 in June 2012, Birthday Boy is fascinated by young girls resembling his first kill. When in his killer mode, he wears a burlap sack with holes cut out for the eyes and a birthday party hat, usually in a room decorated like a birthday party. As a calling card, he left birthday candles where he stole away his victims and told his victims to make a wish that was decorated with the words "Happy Birthday Amanda," which is only creepier since we have Amanda here. And I feel like this guy is a representation of all of her DMs. That's right, I'm calling all of you nerds out. I think the sickest part of this character though was when he first started the whole Birthday Boy thing. He had been hired by Mayor Oswald Cobblepot to eliminate various enemies. In return, he was given girls from the streets or enemies of the Penguin as a reward. And at 9, Professor Pig. Professor Pig originally debuted in the alternate reality story of Batman number 666, which I love. He also debuted as a corpse, which I love even more. However, he was introduced as a recurring character in 2009 in Batman and Robin number 1. In Batman Reborn, Laszlo Valentine was an extreme circus mob boss until something turned him into Professor Pig, leading him to begin funding his scientific experiments by selling narcotics to the criminal underworld. All in all, he's an extremely disturbing villain, and that makes me think about why people aren't afraid of pigs as much as they are clowns, because if you ask me, this guy is freaking horrifying, okay? Professor Pig, if you couldn't tell, actually wears a pig mask, along with a butcher's apron, and what at times appears to be some form of hastily thrown together surgical outfit, like he got it from like Wish. Or he got it from like Party City. It's freaking weird. Also ends up brainwashing and controlling various people who he calls his Dolotrons. Like, I don't know what else there is to do other than just run away, so I'm gonna move on now. Although next time I have a pet pig in Minecraft, I know what I'm naming him. And at 8, Bootface. Okay, this guy's origin is the reason I wanted to talk about him. This guy's origin was simply him getting kicked in the face by Batman, and that's it, I'm not even kidding. Bootface was a thug working for Terminus. He got his name because of a boot imprint embedded into his face, which, like I said, is from Batman. Bootface first appeared in Batman and Robin Volume 2 number 10 from 2012, and honestly, it's one of the most interesting origins I've ever seen. And I mean this completely seriously. Everyone else has like a parent die, or was living in poverty, or was being abused. This dude just got kicked in the face and got so mad about it he became a supervillain. Even if he wasn't really like a good person beforehand, I mean, like, he was a thug and basically still is, but like still, just this time he has a ridiculous name to go with it, but hey, I still love it. And a man who is fueled by pure rage because he was permanently scarred by his attacker that ends up being a superhero, that's good enough for me. That's so funny. Bootface.
Number 7. Khonshu. Khonshu is inherently an evil god when it comes to actual Egyptian mythology, just to be clear. And even in the world of Marvel, he's actually done a lot of good. But he's also done some pretty shady things. Especially recently, he's done some pretty shady things. During the Age of Khonshu event in the Avengers series, Khonshu actually used his avatar Moon Knight, aka Mark Spector, known as the Fist of Khonshu, to help him defeat Mephisto. Now while this sounds like a good thing, since when it comes to Marvel's gods, Mephisto, being like Marvel's devil or Satan, is kinda one of the worst, it turned out to not be so good after it was revealed that Khonshu planned on taking over the Earth and turning it into his own Egyptian underworld. This revelation caused Moon Knight to turn on his god, and as Khonshu often likes to remind us, his father, teaming up with the Avengers to take him down. Following this, Khonshu would actually become imprisoned in the dungeons of Asgard, and while he can still visit Moon Knight via visions, he can no longer be physically present on Earth while imprisoned.
Speaking of which, in its 6th, Condiment King. The Condiment King, created by Bruce Timm and Paul Dini for Batman the Animated Series, is a villain who makes use of various condiments, sometimes capable of causing anaphylactic shock, and his weapons are literally like those squeeze tubes for like ketchup and mustard, just on guns. It's hilarious. He's generally used as comic relief within the series, but still. He would make many condiment-based puns. For example, the big bad bat guy, I knew you'd catch up to me sooner. How I relished this meeting. You, the dynamic Dark Knight, versus me, the conceptual Condiment King. Come, Batman, let's see if you can cut the mustard. The Condiment King is seemingly killed after being betrayed and bludgeoned by the Human Flame with his own ketchup and mustard guns in the miniseries Final Crisis Aftermath Run, which is a comic book, which already shows how he can actually be deadly aside from the whole anaphylactic shock thing. And that's again not taking into account any potential allergic reactions that he can trigger, or blindness. I mean, ketchup and mustard are very acidic and can cause some serious damage if left unchecked. It just goes right into the eyes, you know? Plus, what if you have fries and he gives you mustard, okay? The only appropriate punishment for that is death. Halfway through into number 5, Savitar. The fact that Barry Allen was able to just beat this whole Savitar thing from The Flash Season 3 will always escape me. I won't really ever understand how they actually ended up defeating a literal version of Barry from the future. I get how they managed to do it, but it was still incredibly unrealistic, since technically Savitar would have known beforehand that the timeline was changing, since technically that should, in my brain, at least be how time travel works, but this ended up being how it works in the show, so that's fine, I guess. I don't see how it ever would have been possible to defeat a future version of the Flash without this though, but I know that he couldn't really die, since if he died, Savitar wouldn't be able to happen. A future version of the Flash is always going to be mega OP, okay? I said it. In at 4, Clock King. Born William Talkman, Clock King spends his early years taking care of his invalid sister. One day he finds out from a doctor that he himself only has 6 months to live. Great. Despairing for his sister's future, he watches the timing of a local bank's vault in order to rob it, hoping that the money would provide for his sister after he was gone. His caper would have gone on successfully had he not tripped the silent alarm and been caught by the Green Arrow. The Clock King then goes on to join Major Disasters in Justice League, which becomes the Justice League Antarctica. This JLA includes G-Nort, who ends up saving the lives of the entire team. The original Clock King had no metahuman powers or abilities, although he is athletic and extraordinarily smart. He extensively uses clocks and time-related gimmicks to devastating effect. His primary weapon is a sword forged into the shape of a clock's hand that also doubles as a walking stick. And his skill in swordsmanship is such that even Batman himself could not defeat him in single combat. So watch out for Clock King.
Number 3, Darkseid. Another guy that doesn't know how to chill. Even though Perpetua can literally bend reality to her whim, Darkseid is constantly in the DC universe, which means he basically has to always exist. You can't ever really defeat him because Darkseid is. What is Darkseid? No, he just is. Every time I say this in a video, I'm like, it sounds so confusing, and I feel like anyways, I'm gonna explain it to you right now. Darkseid is a short phrase that implies that Darkseid will always exist. This also extends to the idea of what Darkseid represents. The phrase was actually introduced by Grant Morrison, and to me it has always embodied the idea that Darkseid is more than just the being. He's the feeling, the fear, the destruction, and in some cases, the oppression that Darkseid represents. Even without Darkseid, those things still exist, and so in a way he can never really be gone. But also you can interpret this phrase more literally, as after all, Perpetua may have been a powerhouse, but she's gone now, while Darkseid still is.
Penultimately, in at number 2, Lex Joker. Lex Joker was created when John Dee, also known as Dr. Destiny, collapsed the DC universe in half. First appearing in Superman Batman number 60 in 2009, Lex Joker is the combination of, you guessed it, Lex Luthor and Joker. Lex Joker hired Doomstroke and Terranado to destroy the Justice Titans. However, after the JTs allied with Batman and Superman, he hired 4 more mercenaries to create the Brotherhood of Injustice. Thanks to Terra, who had gone undercover with the JTs, they were able to attack the Justice Tower, and come on, let's be honest. If you have the brains of Lex Luthor and the complete insanity of the Joker, you're making one heck of an opponent. When you have 2 powerful forces in comics, at some point there's like bound to be a mashup of the 2 to create a larger, even more powerful villain. And Lex Joker is probably the scariest combination we could have gotten that wasn't like Joker and Doomsday or Joker and Darkseid. Oh god, Joker Darkseid. And finally, in at number 1, the Eraser. The Eraser was the chosen alias of Lenny Fiasco, who turned to crime after living his college days under constant mocking and taunting by his classmates. Of course, it's because, you know, that's what college is like. No, that's high school, bro. Fiasco is a professional at covering the tracks of other crimes. For a 20% cut, the Eraser will erase the evidence of another crime. And honestly, I think that it's like the only job that anyone with the name Fiasco could have. The villain's power is a special helmet designed to look like a pencil eraser, because of course it is, that can wipe off evidence, even those that would be invisible to the naked eye, which is pretty damn cool when you think about it. After Batman posed as a villain to try to capture the Eraser, the villain told Bruce that he had became a criminal because Bruce had shattered his dreams of going out with Celia Smith. I'm not even gonna get into that, okay? Bruce didn't even remember her name, which made the Eraser angry. And I think that this is probably the absolute coolest concept for a supervillain, because in all honesty, if this guy wasn't an idiot, he could have ruled the world. Like, just straight up, this guy would absolutely ruin any and all investigations and then turn the tides of trials. This guy could have ended up being just like a shadow government in himself, okay? If only he wasn't just a dumbass.
Coming in at number 10, we've got Vengeance. Bane has been a mainstay in the Batman universe for years. Making many appearances in plenty of different forms, this super strong mask-wearing baddie is widely credited with being the only villain to properly break Batman, both physically and mentally. That's a tall order, especially considering how tough Batman usually is in both these categories. Whether we're looking at Tom Hardy's portrayal or maybe the Bane in Infinite Crisis, he uses his superior intelligence, willpower, and brute strength to bring his plans to fruition. So, of course, his offspring would be similarly powerful, with plenty to offer the stories of Arkham. Enter Vengeance, Bane's wiry, wildly powerful daughter. Appearing first in The Joker number 2, she appears to be looking to kill the clown prince of crime after a heinous attack that came to be known as the A-Day Joker gas attack. This chemical killing spree took out all sorts of folks in Arkham Asylum, and the friends and family of these famous villains were none too happy. Vengeance, living up to her name, has decided that she will be the one to exact revenge upon Joker, and heads out to find him. Just as strong as her father in pretty much all capacities, there isn't much that would stop her from completing her mission. In fact, she single-handedly wipes out an armed personal army while hunting for the green-haired menace. There is one little thing though. Joker claims he didn't pull off the gas attack. Chilling in Belize, Joker is unsure who would do such a thing, but says it definitely wasn't him. So this progeny of Bane, also apparently born in the lab, fueled by rage and powerful muscles, is on a bit of a wild goose chase. Even if she kills the Joker, she won't have the revenge she imagined. Plus, there's always the other mission of finding out who actually managed to gas Arkham Asylum. Vengeance is a straightforward and deadly force and should be a lot of fun to follow as things develop. Coming in number 9, we've got Clown Hunter. Another fanatical Joker hater, Clown Hunter gets his name from his goal. Pretty straightforward, eh? He wants Joker dead, and he wants to ensure this is done by his hands. Clown Hunter, aka Bao Fam. He hunts clowns. Why though? What would drive a young man to committing his life to killing a clown? Sure, Joker's done plenty of heinous things in his lifetime, but that's almost a given of living in Arkham City. Wouldn't most people like to figure out a way to live productive lives, even with the chaos turning in the background? Well, things are personal when it comes to Clown Hunter and his supposed prey. As a child, he witnessed Joker kill his parents in cold blood and then run off cackling into the night, as Joker tends to do, of course. With this traumatic experience, Clown Hunter was committed to a life of hating Joker. He also came to believe that Batman simply wasn't doing enough to deal with this moron society. Joker kept killing innocent people and was always allowed to live afterwards. Even if he were to be imprisoned, restrained, or otherwise removed from society, he'd make his return in one way or another. So Clown Hunter decided that Joker needed to die. Batman was too lax with him, and so were the rest of the crime fighters in Arkham. Armed with a Batarang-tipped baseball bat, Clown Hunter killed something like a dozen of Joker's henchmen and even planned on killing Harley Quinn. Somehow, someway, Batman sniffs this out and attempts to reason with the kid. This doesn't stop another vigilante getting involved and encouraging Clown Hunter down the path of violence though. Coming in at number 8, we've got Flatline. Another character named after what they do, Flatline will stop your heart from beating. She'll do it in a particularly gruesome way too. Known for ripping people's hearts out barehanded, she's a legendary martial artist with a brutal streak. Hell, she even did it to Robin during what can only be described as a Mortal Kombat tournament. Interestingly enough, the rules of the tournament allowed Robin to be resurrected, but that's neither here nor there. After training all her life under some of the world's finest martial artists, she was ready to bring her own story. Heading to the island to win a tournament that was said to grant immortality, she stood head and shoulders above the rest of the combatants. Appearing as an ashen-skinned woman with an affinity for black skeleton-themed clothing, she doesn't seem like the type to mercilessly kill countless top-tier fighters, but she does it anyway and does so with a smile.
Number 7. The 53rd World. The 53rd World, named by the smart primates who live there, was a world unknown to the rest of the multiverse. It's set in a near future where presumably the world is inhabited by super smart apes, like Planet of the Apes style. Oh, and also, immortality was achieved in 2067, meaning that yes, all these ultra smart apes are immortal. We know that there exists alternate ape versions of Superman, Batman, the Atom, and Aquaman. The existence of this Earth was first revealed in 2018's Dark Knight's Rising: The Wild Hunt, when Detective Chimp was beginning to lose his intelligence. The ape heroes show up, recruited by Raven, Cyborg, and the Flash to help with the dark multiverse, saying they were here to help. Obviously. Detective Chimp, accompanied by the apes of the 53rd Earth, plus Flash, Cyborg, and Raven, go to help Earth Zero's Justice League fight the dark multiverse forces. That's kind of all we know about the 53rd Earth. I want more super apes!
Coming in at number 6, we've got Simon Saint. What's a good story without an esoteric billionaire calling the shots from the shadows? There's always room for more well-moneyed lunatics causing doom and gloom, especially in the era we're all living in. I'm sure there's no real-world comparisons to be made here. No way. Simon Saint is a man with a plan, and that plan is to introduce a fascist police force to the city that he would have total control over. Sure, he's trying to sell it as a partnership to Mayor Nakano, but we all know who the real leader would be. Saint Industries wants to kickstart this militaristic police force known as the Magistrate, complete with robotic officers known as peacekeepers and remote drones to keep people in line. All under the guise of making sure everyone is safe, right? To really sell this idea to the mayor and the public, Saint secretly employs some folks to put fear into the heart of every civilian. A very familiar scaremonger shows up to help too, which is never a good sign.
Number 5. Spider-Man. While Peter Parker's story was not too different from his 616 counterpart, he wouldn't end up being the only Spider-Man in the Earth of 1610, and in fact Peter would eventually leave the mantle, passing it on to someone in his place. Someone new and very different from our Earth 616 Spidey. Yep, we are talking about the beloved Miles Morales. Miles was introduced in the Ultimate Universe and became such a fan favorite that he ended up moving over to Earth 616, even after the Ultimate line was ended. Miles' backstory was that he was a teenage kid who was bit by a genetically enhanced spider exposed to the Oz formula while he was visiting his criminal uncle Aaron Davis. Miles was your average, awkward, but lovable hero who happened to be a teenager caught in the middle somewhat of family drama, with his uncle being a criminal and his dad Jefferson drawn into crime alongside his brother Aaron, who ended up working in secret as Fury's eyes and ears in the criminal world, but then later decided to leave it all behind and become a police officer instead.
Coming in at number 4, we've got the Gardener. Much more dangerous than her name suggests, this green-thumbed villain has roots deep within Batman's lore. Introduced as an eco-terrorist who will do anything to keep the world as green as possible. If doing so requires the use of weird plant-animal hybrids and destructive attacks upon important areas, so be it. Interestingly enough, this villain has connections to another plant-based Batman rival. You guessed it, the Gardener has a history with Poison Ivy. In fact, the two dated in college. Imagine that. These photosynthesis enthusiasts have quite a lot in common. Add in the fact that the Gardener knows about Poison Ivy's transformation that will make her into Queen Ivy, and you've got a very interesting new addition.
Number 3. Green Lantern Legacy. Green Lantern Legacy is a one-shot comic from 2020, in which we are given an alternate Earth where the Green Lanterns of Earth were John Stewart, who we already know, and a Vietnamese woman named Kim Tran. Now, Kim Tran, like most of the Green Lanterns, was an awesome hero who never let evil escape her sight in brightest day or blackest night. She was a pillar for her community too, helping people from all walks of life. And she even helped other Vietnamese immigrants feel at home in this new city. The comic, though, really follows Tai Pham, who is Kim Tran's grandson, as he takes up the mantle of Green Lantern from his grandmother, becoming one of the youngest Green Lanterns at 12 years old. We see him struggle with racism, bullies, his own fears, and against the Yellow Lantern. It's a great story, and it gives some well-needed Vietnamese representation to the DC landscape. Give it a read!
Coming in at number 2, we've got Miracle Molly. Searching for a way to live life beyond the means of what most would consider sane, this green-haired so-called criminal founded the Unsanity Collective. A group meant to allow civilians to live their lives without the weight of their past trauma, it develops technology that flies in the face of the magistrate. Molly is the brains behind the operation, building and distributing gadgets and tools to all of her followers. Although their goals are noble, they go about their plans in ways deemed unacceptable by the powers that be, which causes a whole lot of problems, as you might imagine. However, Batman infiltrates the collective to find out more and discovers how genuine and committed Miracle Molly is. Although their actions are criminal, their hearts are in the right place. The magistrate and in turn peacekeepers don't like this. An enemy of an enemy becomes a friend, and Batman joins the fight in an unpredictable way thanks to the influence of Miracle Molly. And finally at number 1, we've got Ghostmaker. Oh damn. This vigilante trained with pretty much all of these same people Batman trained with and rivaled the Caped Crusader all throughout his life. There is one major difference, however. Ghostmaker is willing to kill. In fact, sometimes Ghostmaker believes that killing is sort of an art form while fighting crime. He's all about the art when it comes to dealing with criminal elements, which is a very interesting way to go about it. His values clash with the Bat's quite often, spurring on many fights between the two. However, when a bigger threat emerges, it becomes clear that the two vigilantes must team up or be defeated.
At number 10, we have Annihilus. Using the Cosmic Control Rod, Annihilus ameliorates his own well-being, spending most of his time trying to find ways to make himself, yes, immortal. The Rod is known to have almost limitless capabilities, so his efforts aren't in vain, as he has found ways to fend off disease, slowing down cellular degeneration, otherwise known as aging, and warding off heat and cold. He also uses it to fly super fast, which is another plus. The only reason why Annihilus is back at number 10 for me is that he seems to need the Cosmic Control Rod to achieve immortality. And even while he has it, he's known to be liable to make big mistakes due to his paranoia that others are going to try and snatch it from him. Remember kids, the real superpower is up here. Number 9 goes to Apocalypse. This villain, often facing off against the X-Men, originated in ancient Egypt, giving hints that he's capable of existing for hundreds of years at a time without meeting death. Yeah, so he's also known to have supreme control over his body from an atomic level, being capable of growing in size and density whenever he chooses, and adapting to his environment and fighting off disease. Not only that, but he's immune to aging again. So when Apocalypse was finally defeated by Cable, he wasn't actually killed and regenerated in a tomb in Aqaba. So there you have it. It seems like this guy will always be around. Our best bet is to keep him at bay for a while before he inevitably comes back, possibly repeating this process for eternity. Alright, at number 8 we have Mephisto, a demon creature who presents similarly to how humans view Satan. And yes, he did this to manipulate our singular views of evil through our tale of Satan the fallen angel. Regardless, Mephisto is known to be so powerful that he does not need food or water, or even oxygen to survive. He even has abilities to regenerate in the instances that he is damaged, going as far as regrowing limbs. And he can also see his own future if he so chooses. So even if something was coming his way that could somehow usurp his seemingly immortal powers, he would see it coming and put a stop to it before it could reach him. Mephisto proves to be a threat throughout the ages, and although he does face certain limitations to his powers and influence, this list isn't about power, but about immortality. So there you go.
Number 7, Juggernaut. While Juggernaut still wears his Cyttorak armor, even he has seen some major improvements when it comes to his look over the years. And not just in the costume department either. We've also seen this character change a ton as a person, to the point that now he's a lot more anti-hero than villain even. Possibly even bordering on full-on hero, I'd say. Juggernaut no longer actually wears armor given to him by Cyttorak because he renounced the god, and instead used materials that Cyttorak had left from the times he basically reached out to Earth to forge his own armor. The result is a much more sleek looking design as opposed to the more clunky and stiff looking armor that he wore when he made his first appearance back in X-Men issue number 12. And that look is still iconic, don't get me wrong. It is quite similar to the overall character design, but a few important tweaks over time have greatly improved Juggernaut's overall look today. Juggy baby is looking good. I like that new armor.
Number 6 on our list goes to the one and only Kang the Conqueror. This villain is so powerful that he's able to change the course of history with little to no effort. His ability to traverse through time gives him supreme insight and also the capability to appear in any time in the history of our universe, future, past, and present. He's a real contender for this list because although he's been defeated in the past, he was really only in a state of limbo, and he never truly meets a final end. I mean, he's able to not only design the outcome of reality in most cases, but also just exist in any time he'd like. He once lived in ancient Egypt, and also the turn of the 20th century. The point is, Kang shows time and time again that he's capable of existing in multiple times throughout history, which I would argue could be a form of immortality. As Schrodinger's logic would go, Kang has and hasn't existed at every moment in history and the future. It would just be up to us to observe him, and well, good luck with that.
Number 5, Cheetah. I mean, the Cheetah outfit has changed a lot since her first appearance, and so has the character. The first Cheetah villain we were ever introduced to in the pages of 1943's Wonder Woman issue number 6 is no longer the Cheetah we have in comics. Literally. Much has changed about the character, including her identity, her origin, and her overall look and power set. The original Cheetah was Priscilla Rich, a jealous debutante who dressed up in a skin-tight cheetah onesie. It's a look, I gotta say. Now we have Barbara Minerva as the main cheetah, who instead of dressing up actually has a humanoid cheetah form, having been transformed basically by a god. Very different looks and takes on this character, but I definitely say that Minerva's is better overall. Sorry Priscilla, it's just cooler. Like, I mean, then you get to actually kind of fight like a cheetah lady, as opposed to just a lady in a cheetah costume.
Okay, at number 4, we're looking at Searcher, the 1,000-foot tall fire giant who can move stuff with his mind. Searcher was the sworn enemy of Odin and Thor and eventually destroys Asgard. At a few points, Searcher is imprisoned and banished, but never completely destroyed. Even after one of these instances where Searcher was transported to the Sea of Eternal Light and frozen for all time, he still re-emerges after a Norwegian guy named Sven finds a medallion with connections to Searcher, and subsequently turns into him. Thank you so much, Sven. And once again, when he's finally defeated by the Asgardians, he isn't really, since he just finds himself resurrected in a realm called Muspelheim. There's one instance where he's then beheaded by the Twilight Sword, another where he's basically destroyed by Odin who steals the Eternal Flame from him, but based on his track record, I'm not buying that any of these instances are the last of him.
Number 3, Magneto. Magneto was such a rectangle head back in the day. Don't tell him I said that though, please. I don't want him to come for me. But seriously, when it comes to Magneto's overall look, he's come a long way from just being a pair of piercing blue eyes peering out of a very boxy helmet. His look has always been iconic, that I definitely cannot deny. But over the years it's become a lot more refined and complex, along with the character. When Magneto first appeared on the scene, he was kind of more of a two-dimensional evil mutant, hell-bent on ruling over the humans and planet Earth, having mutants take their rightful place as the dominant species, Homo superior as they were known. Over time, his struggle became more nuanced as we learned more about his own backstory, which was quite tragic, and how he was mistreated, and it made a lot more sense that Magneto would want to fight for mutants who he felt had been marginalized, as he had been himself many times over through the course of his life. With this depth, his look also gained a lot of depth, and today, no matter which outfit he has on, he generally looks stylish, gentlemanly, and, well, all-powerful. As well he should. That upgrade? That's a 10.
Number 2, we've got the insatiable Galactus. This bad guy is hardly a villain anymore and more like a floating entity that feeds on the energy of life forms. Interdimensional and one of the oldest known beings to ever exist, Galactus always finds a way to bring evil to the cosmos. Even in his apparent death, he was replaced by Abraxas, who basically took over in his absence. As much as Galactus is able to endure, and despite his nearly infinite age, there are instances where he's weakened and put into submissive positions by other forces in the cosmos. The closest he comes to truly dying is when Thor and Galactus' attempted assault on the Black Winter goes horribly wrong and Thor turns on him, leaving him on the brink of death. A little too late, I'd say, considering you just let him consume 5 planets, Thor, but also good on you for killing Galactus sooner or later. But does Galactus ever die? Not really. Let's just hope that Abraxas doesn't come back again while he's gone. We don't want that. That guy's no good either. At number 1, we have the Goblin Entity. This being was created at the point of the Big Bang, so one of the oldest on our list for sure. That said, the power of this villain has sustained over billions of years, and just like Galactus, it is driven by its insatiable hunger for energy. It's basically a giant, dark entity that moves through the cosmos, ingesting everything in its way. It is confirmed that the Goblin Entity cannot die, and if it were to be killed, similarly to everyone else on this list, it would find a way to regenerate. It seems what we're dealing with in this top 10 is a group of villains that just won't stop, no matter how hard you try to defeat them. But perhaps by exploring the villains with potential immortality, we're also exploring the deepest depths of true metaphorical evil found in the DC and Marvel universes, in that in the real world as well, evil does always find its way back into the world, and all that can be done about it is temporary. Although those moments are sweet, where good wins, it's not long before we have to prepare for evil to return and rear its ugly head again.
In at 10, Rainbow Raider. The reason that all the good guys are good is because of their morals. Because they channel their anger into something positive, because they can control themselves. But what happens when a hero with powers like Superman is filled with a red-hot rage? Well, we saw it in Injustice. But someone able to cause those emotions, that person being Rainbow Raider, makes them pretty damn powerful. Rainbow Raider's power is derived entirely from their special goggles, okay? Which allows him to project solid beams of rainbow-colored light that he can either use offensively or as a slide for travel, and he can also coat people in certain colors of light to induce emotions, like blue for sadness, red for anger. There's also the Rainbow Raiders, a team of super color-themed villains that also have powers based on the color of the rainbow. However, just the ability to induce emotion by covering someone in light is enough to make Roy G. Bivolo pretty damn powerful. If all my rage came out and I had super speed, damn, people would have to like hide in fear, but it wouldn't matter because I would find them. And at 9, Zoom. I included a CW character on this list specifically for the guy in my DMs who told me to stop doing it. The CW version of Zoom was not exactly what everyone was expecting, although you have to admit he is one of the best and scariest villains in the Arrowverse to date. The sheer demonic look he had, especially with the suit, shook even me. However, thanks to the Velocity 9 that he was taking, Hunter Zolomon was incredibly fast, the fastest we had ever seen at that point. So fast even that in order to fight him, Barry had to take speed out of the equation. And during the final fight, Barry had to create a time remnant because he wasn't fast enough to stop Zoom with only one of him. It only got worse after Zoom kidnapped Wally and Barry had to give Zoom his speed in order to get Wally back. This only made Zoom faster. It gets even worse when in the final fight the Time Wraiths come out of the Speed Force and take Zoom, which changes him into the Black Flash, and then he gets supercharged by the Speed Force to become the living embodiment of death for all speedsters. Plus, I mean, this guy was able to create breaches at will to bring hundreds of metahumans over to Earth 1. That's pretty damn impressive. And at 8, Johnny Quick. Johnny Allen, alias Johnny Quick, is a criminal speedster from Earth 3. Together with his girlfriend and partner in crime Atomica, he was a member of the crime syndicate. Johnny Allen was a high-profile criminal on the run with his equally criminal girlfriend. Cornered on the roof of Central City's Star Labs, Allen was struck by a bolt of lightning which shattered the roof. The duo fell into the lab space below, with Allen landing amid the chemicals that gave, presumably, Earth 1 Barry his speed. Something in this incident, probably the chemicals, granted him his super speed, and he went on to become a super criminal alongside his girlfriend who had also been given powers. While his girlfriend took on the name Atomica, he took on the name Johnny Quick. The couple joined the crime syndicate at some point after this, and they ran through Central City, answering to no one, until one day the White House burned, around the time of Darkseid's incursion onto Earth Prime. The being that had destroyed Ultraman's Krypton came to Earth, and an alliance of supercriminals formed to find a way to safety. So yeah, it's basically just Barry Allen, but Earth 3. I say that's pretty overpowered. And at 7, Mirror Man. Lloyd Ventures is a criminal who was detained in Gotham State Penitentiary. Using broken mirror shards, he distracts the guards long enough to escape from prison. Inspired by mirrors, I guess somehow, he becomes Mirror Man. Upon creating a machine that would enable him to see through objects, Mirror Man began targeting Batman so that he could find out his secret identity. He literally discovers Batman's identity as Bruce Wayne by using a X-ray mirror, which is freaking nuts. Like, what even is that? How is that a thing? Mirror Man actually gets sent to prison before he can reveal the identity though, but because they want conflict, of course, he manages to escape with a plan to reveal Bruce's identity to the world, only foiled when Alfred, dressed as Batman, interrupts a press conference that Bruce Wayne was hosting, instantly disproving the fact that Batman is Bruce Wayne, because you saw them both in the same room. Even though that obviously Batman is partners. I don't know why people believe that. The public should have seen through this, okay? The people in Gotham City are dumber than we thought. I mean, they had Condiment King, so I guess they are dumb. And at 6, Gorilla Grodd. Gorilla Grodd is a Flash rogue from Africa's Gorilla City. The original Grodd, which debuted in DC Comics in 1959, was a telepath who could control other animals and also had a form of mind control as well over humans. In the New 52, all inhabitants of Gorilla City had accelerated mental attributes due to the Speed Force, but Grodd was still the superior member of the species. On The Flash in the CW, Grodd was a very intelligent gorilla experimented on at Star Labs to try and create a super soldier for the US government. However, the torture and unethical treatment of the gorilla caused him to grow angry and evil, and he escaped seeking vengeance. Grodd had powerful mind control powers on top of superhuman strength and enhanced intellect, and at one point even combined with the Flash to be a psychopathic, telepathic gorilla with super speed. So I think it's safe to say that we should all be scared of Gorilla Grodd. Plus, his pop figure is pretty damn cool.
Number 5, Perpetua. I kind of feel bad actually that Perpetua is only like halfway up this list, but that's alright. She had her time in the sun. It has come to a close. Perpetua has to be one of the most powerful godlike beings in all of DC Comics. She basically sought to take over and destroy all of the multiverse so that she might rebuild it in her own image, but was stopped by her children and trapped in the Source Wall. By the way, one of her children is also on this list. See if you can figure out who it is. Later on, she teamed up with the Batman Who Laughs to get free, but ended up being double-crossed by him, tricked out of her own reality-shattering power. Still, the power was originally hers, and she was trapped in the Source Wall because there was nowhere else strong enough to hold her originally. Perpetua's only downside as a being who can bend reality and even life and death to her whim is that she relies on crisis energy to fuel her immense power, which is how the Batman Who Laughs was able to steal her power from her. He was like, I'm gonna take that crisis energy. Gulp. Yum.
In at 4, Mirror Master. While Mirror Master never seemed like much more than a B-grade supervillain in Flash's Rogues Gallery, his power has made him so much more. Before he became a Flash version, the second Mirror Master, Evan McCulloch, was an assassin in Scotland and was already a formidable foe. However, once he got his mirror gun, he became insanely powerful. The mirror gun gives Mirror Master the ability to travel to an alternate dimension by entering and exiting any reflective surface. On top of being a significant pain in the Flash's side, Mirror Master has also fought Animal Man and was someone that gave him all he could handle. The CW used the Sam Scudder version, and he was only a minor villain, and then they kinda did Eva McCulloch for season 7, but honestly, even Sam being able to travel through mirrors like that, trapping the Flash in the mirror dimension for a time, this guy is certainly underestimated. Although I hope that they find a way to explore maybe some of his abilities in later comics or even the show. I'd like to see that. Getting close to the end of number 3, the Calculator. While the Calculator now seems to be an oracle of sorts for supervillains, the original purpose and MO of the Calculator is far more entertaining and interesting, at least to me. Noah Cutler began his criminal career by crossing the country and getting into fights with various superheroes on purpose, analyzing and recording their battle tactics to ensure that he couldn't be beaten again. Or in some incarnations, he would simply get beaten and then press a button on his chest to ensure that he didn't get beat again. Maybe that was like taking in the information or something, like how Iron Man would just say like analyze his fight patterns and then come up with countermeasures, you know? But either way, okay, do you know how insanely overpowered that could have been? Just being able to like press a button and then boom, you're instantly basically immune to Batman or Robin or even Superman. Like that would be absolutely amazing. You do this enough times, you could just do whatever you want. And like then other criminals like start paying you to do their crimes for them because you guarantee success. That's freaking nuts. Okay, I wish they kept that Calculator. That could have been an even bigger threat than Darkseid if he kept going at it like that. This is why I'm the hero, because I would be unstoppable as a villain. Penultimately, in at number 2, Red Death. Red Death is a speedster that is an evil combination of Batman and the Flash. which already sounds terrifying, but wait until you hear the story. The Bruce Wayne of Earth 52 started off fighting crime with Robin, but because, you know, of course, Robins kept dying left, right, and center. So, understandably, Batman got darker and darker, becoming more extreme with his methods. He started killing people, which honestly seems more realistic to me, aside from just like being done fighting crime totally, which can't happen, otherwise they wouldn't have a story, right? This eventually leads him to Barry, who refuses to give Bruce his Speed Force powers, understandably because again, this time Batman's a psycho. So, Batman, using the various rogues' weapons to fight Barry, knocks him out. Once Barry was unconscious, Bruce tied him to the front of a cosmic treadmill modified Batmobile, I don't know how the hell he did that, and then drives them both into the Speed Force. Again, I don't know how that happened or works logically, but okay. You do you, Bat Marty, we gotta get back to the future, your kids are in danger. When entering the Speed Force, Barry and Bruce, again, somehow ended up fusing together into an evil Batman with super speed and a lust for killing. And while Barry's mind was trapped inside Bruce's body, so he could just watch. He then gets a visit from the Batman Who Laughs, who was part of the Dark Knights and whose goal was conquering the multiverse, and since he was a version of Batman who was psycho, he was like, hey you, come here, come with me, we're the same kind of. And finally, in number 1, Black Lantern Reverse Flash. The Black Lantern Corps is a group of various dead superheroes and villains alike who were raised by Nekron and each given a Black Lantern ring. This ring grants them power over death, and these rings are powered by the Anti-Monitor, as he is present within the Black Lantern power battery. Those raised by the Black Lantern ring are in essence resurrected to where they were before death, but their mind is warped to serve Nekron's purpose. Now they aren't really like fully resurrected, but that's kind of like the best analogy that we have. Those with the ring have various powers including a healing factor, aura recognition which allows them to see powerful emotions, energy spectrum assimilation which lets them extract the hearts of individuals they've slain and use their last feelings to charge the central battery and their ring by 0.01%, because you know that's a lot, it's worth it. And they, much like zombies, can infect others by biting them. A bite from a Black Lantern will slowly kill the one bitten and then turn them into a Black Lantern upon death. Yeah, basically zombies with superpowers, so definitely not something to laugh at, especially when it's the man who killed Barry Allen's mother for the fun of it.